very and special good morning to you. We are live from Johannesburg, a warm and balmy Johannesburg ahead of the cold season that's heading our way.
Just ahead of the cold season, Eben, but of course it's getting very cold in some parts of the country as well. But this morning we focus on a very sensitive issue, especially for those areas on the borders of our country, hey?
Yep. Cross-border crimes such as vehicle and stock theft, they are threatening the livelihood of communities living on the borders of our country. So we're asking a question and we're also having discussion points around this today.
Yeah, the question that we pose to you, and it's on your screen right now, how should South Africa deal with the escalating cross-border crimes there, Eben? And it's an increasing escalating crimes, yes.
For sure, and it's even the president visited Jozini and other areas to talk to communities about how do we come to terms with this problem, because it's really affecting people's lives and how they operate and do business. Temba tweets us here. He says, "Eish, they can't stop crime there. The problem is bribes."
Well, the problem is bribes, he says, because it's an increase in terms of stock theft, as well as 4x4 vehicles are in the increase in being stolen in the country and being taken across the borders. NTT says government's duty is to protect its citizens more, especially from foreign invaders. Are we?
Foreign invaders? Ayatollah Sultan comes, he says, send the army at the border. Yes, send the army. That's always a quick fix, everyone thinks.
NTT continues. He says, do we even have a say on how to protect ourselves against foreign criminals? No, we don't. Human rights organizations and others claim that we are xenophobic.
Yeah, this is a discussion we're having in South Africa around xenophobia, but around the rise of criminality in our communities. And we'll speak to an expert after 10 o'clock about whether this problem is bigger than what we think.
Now, the president did visit the borders areas, and our reporter was there as well. We'll also speak to her a little bit later. But also we're conducting a poll today. That's the Finance Minister, Malusi Gaba. He's now in Washington to reassure investors and promote South Africa as a preferred investment destination.
Yeah, some say it's going to be a tough task he's got ahead of him. 151 votes are saying that they agree it'll be a tough work ahead of the new finance minister. Only 33% of people believe that he will win over investors during this trip. That's 151 votes in. Keep voting. 2/3 are saying no, he won't.
Mintle says he's such a brilliant person. Will that woo the investors? Question.
Ayatollah comes back. He says they train you for 3 months how to convince the investors before sending. He can't even convince us here, with a sad face.
Well, Ayatollah, I wonder how you know that he was trained for 3 months. September, as long as we give him the support, he will win.
Alfredinho says, we will see. A very considered view there. We will see. Yes, some say we are quite quick to judge matters here in South Africa. Elvis, we have become a little bit judgmental, haven't we?
Well, it's a societal thing, you know. Some call it freedom of expression.
In the guise of freedom of expression. Anyhow, let's express ourselves here on the show with the morning's news.
Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa has come out in support of government's radical economic transformation. The Finance Minister, Malusi Gaba, is in Washington for a multi-city roadshow of the United States, where he hopes to woo investors and meet the ratings agency Moody's. The Hawks have confirmed that the head of the Jesus Dominion International Church, Tim Omotoso, will hand himself over to the police in Port Elizabeth today. Now, those are your headlines, but before we get there, let's find out from Kendall Makamate. What's happening on the sports fronts? It was raining goals in some places.
100%. I think a lot was riding on results from last night's matches across the globe, both here and in Europe. And some people, if they'd put money on it, they'd be crying, and some would be celebrating today. We're covering all of that a little later on in the Sports Bulletin. In fact, this is what we've got planned for you for today. Good morning to you.
Oh, attempts at intimidation. Now, it's one of those games that would have taken a dead ball to break the deadlock.
As the race for the PSL title heats up, Mamelodi Sundowns complete the double over Tshwane rival SuperSport United, edging them by a single goal to nil.
Is Mendy so progressive, so attacking as a left back and getting the shot away? It's parried out. It's 1-0 to Monaco.
Monaco in scintillating form once again as they ripped through Dortmund's defense, crushing them 3-1 on the night and 6-3 on aggregate to advance to the UEFA Champions League semi-finals.
Oh, is this his first touch? It is! What an impact! And Valère Germain is the man who has put Monaco into the semi-finals of the Champions League.
It was a big factor in deciding to play, to go with Keshav, because he does offer you a bit more batting depth than a guy like Shams would offer you, then a bit more batting depth than a guy than Pangisa would offer you.
Cricket South Africa names a strong squad for the ICC Champions Trophy with one surprise inclusion, that of left-arm spinner Keshav Maharaj. All this and more we've got for you later on at 10:40. Let's stay with Elvis though, because he's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. Radical economic transformation is non-negotiable. Now, that's according to the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa. The Deputy President says to transform the economy, government must increase skills, get black professionals to work with government, create more black industrialists, and develop SMMEs.
We used the term when we said government's program of radical economic transformation is about placing the economy on a quantitatively different path that ensures more rapid, sustainable growth, higher investment, increased employment, reduced inequality, and the deracialization of our economy. That's when the term started seeing the light of day. And of course, we've packed it with a whole number of things, and that term still needs further definition. And I would say those who are dismissing this term, they should sit down, listen, smell the coffee. Because this may be the time for you to smell the coffee and realize that the economic transformation of our country cannot be it's non-negotiable. It has to happen, and it is going to happen. Whether people like it or not, the economy has to be transformed, and it will be transformed.
Finance Minister Gigaba is in Washington for a multi-city roadshow of the United States. Now, he plans to reassure investors and work to prevent South Africa from suffering a third downgrade from Moody's, the ratings agency. Gigaba will also participate in the annual spring meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank.
His visit to the United States comes as the world economy begins to rebound. The IMF this week raising projections for world growth.
We expected growth to rise in 2016, but we're raising our forecast even beyond what it was a couple of months ago to 3.5% this year, 3.6% next year.
Malusi Gigaba, in his first foray onto the international scene as finance minister, is that South Africa's economic challenges come at a time when the world economy is beginning to rebound after a tepid recovery precipitated by the financial crisis that began in 2007. But despite this positive global sentiment, international investors and policy stakeholders are eager to hear how he plans to stop the downward spiral, perceived or otherwise, and what radical economic transformation will mean for those with deep investment pockets sitting abroad. Sherman Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
As you know, the minister is in Washington, and that's why we're posting this poll for you, conducting it, and we want to find out from you. Do you think that Malusi Gigaba's U.S. tour will win over investors? Now, thus far, we have 182 votes in. 69% of you are saying no, he won't, but 31% are very positive that the finance minister, Malusi Gigaba, will win over the investors. You can keep on voting on the poll, as well as send us your comments, and we'll read them as we continue. Now, the Hawks have confirmed that the head of the Jesus Dominion International Church, Tim Omotoso, will hand himself over to the police in Port Elizabeth today. The unit has been looking for him since an SABC special assignment expose on allegations of rape of young girls. Omotoso, a Nigerian national, has been in hiding since. The Hawks have denied bungling the arrest of the renowned prophet Omotoso. The unit was due to arrest him at an Easter crusade in Bloemfontein last week, but allegedly they arrived after he had left. Girls as young as 14 have accused Omotoso of luring them to his Umhlanga home to molest them. He allegedly molested more than 30 young girls on the pretext of rescuing them from drugs. Now, we'll keep you updated on that story and maybe get an update from our reporter out in Port Elizabeth. Now, a toddler missing since Easter Monday has been killed and cannibalized outside Port St. John's in the Eastern Cape. The child's body parts were found in a former prisoner's home. The 30-year-old suspect was released after he served 7 years for a previous crime, in a previous murder, that is. He's in custody and will appear in the Port St. John's Magistrates Courts today on a charge of murder.
It is the first of its kind. It never happened here before. We are very surprised. We want the government to help us and send some psychologists and social workers to come and assist us because our children here are addicted to drugs.
Hey, I feel very, very, very bad. My heart is so, I can't sleep for this thing. I can't sleep for this thing, this child doing for this child. Hey, I can't sleep, people.
Very disturbing story there. But today, there's problems on our borders, escalating cross-border crimes. That's what's happening. So we're asking you this morning, on your screen, how should South Africans deal, or South Africa rather, deal with the escalating cross-border crimes that we've seen? You can let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. So let's start off that conversation. Let's go over to Eben.
Yeah, obviously it's something, of course, that the president has also cast his eye on. He visited there recently, Jozini, KwaZulu-Natal. Of course, the communities there, well, they told the president that these cross-border crimes are threatening the livelihood of those living on the KwaZulu-Natal border with Mozambique. Most residents, they told him that they sell crops there for a living, but organized gangs are forcing them out of business.
Jozini, a thriving rural agricultural area. It's also known for its scenic beauty that attracts tourists all year round. Farming is the only source of livelihood for the locals. In the past year, the once quiet region became a hunting ground for criminals targeting 4x4 bakkies, the very type of vehicle required by locals to maneuver over the terrain and to transport produce. In a period of 3 months, it was estimated that over 65 vehicles were stolen. Their destination, Mozambique.
Our lives have come to a standstill. I'm a young woman and have been trying to make a living for my family by selling crops. After our cars were stolen, our business has suffered.
It's not just the community of Jozini that's been under siege. Residents living on the province's border in Mangozi have been under attack from these syndicates for years. They've held countless meetings and even sent letters of complaint to the president.
At least 8 vehicles pass through here a day, and what is even greater concern to the community is that the relationship with the police is not good. The community don't trust the police, as some are even seen assisting these criminals.
After cries for help and even threats to take the law into their own hands, government intervened.
The question of bringing about safety and border management, remember that you require a holistic approach. So it's not only your barriers and policies or the fence that can only yield the solution and so on, but you also need to deal with the human element amongst other things and other systems that we may have got to look into to ensure that the borders between the two countries are effectively sort of policed and managed for that matter. So it's not one solution that will just simply bring the total sort of solution to the problem.
Police intensified their efforts, recovering scores of vehicles and made many arrests. They also recovered tons of counterfeit goods being smuggled across the border. And during operations also found that some vehicles had been stolen in other provinces.
That method received a serious attention. We have made a number of arrests, and I can assure the public that the Hawks members are deployed there, but they won't see them, but they are there, and they are doing quite well.
Despite a concerted effort by police to put an end to these crimes, the syndicates continue. Residents believe the only solution to what they have called a major crisis is greater cooperation between the governments of South Africa and Mozambique. They've appealed to President Jacob Zuma to intervene.
As you can recall, a month ago, the president, in his capacity as head of state, visited the local municipality there. These were parts of efforts aimed at fighting cross-border crime. Now, President Zuma had an opportunity to then interact with affected communities. Despite police interventions, affected residents made a call for the intervention of the highest office in the land. Now, our reporter Ayanda Mhlongo was with the president in Manguzi, and earlier she was in Jozini with the former police minister, now Nathi Nhleko. As you saw, that interview took place when the visit happened about a month ago. Ayanda joins us now from our SABC studios in Durban. Very good morning to you, Ayanda. Great to have you with us.
A very good morning to you.
Just, you've had first-hand experiences with the local communities there. You've covered the story extensively, and you've traveled there with various parties. What's the experience that you've made, and what are the people, the locals, what have they been telling you there?
Well, what a situation that we found in Manguzi, and I've been there for quite a couple of months, starting from last year when we started receiving complaints from the community that they were under siege from these gangs. And on the occasions that I've visited these, the northern parts of KwaZulu-Natal, the one word that I could use to possibly describe how the people are feeling and how they are living is fear. They are living in constant fear. It was actually quite disheartening to see elderly men, women, prisoners in their own homes now, prisoners in the one area, in their homes, in the areas in which they should be living freely. It was very, very difficult, and for our viewers possibly to understand what it means for these people, as you've heard from that package that I put together during my visits to the area. The people of Manguzi going right up to Jozini, further downwards to Jozini, live mostly on agriculture. Yes, some jobs are from tourism, but those only provide very limited jobs, and most of the people there rely on agriculture. And what happens is that over the years, what people have done is that they've come together to work as cooperatives, and in these cooperatives, they've managed to put together money from selling their produce, and have been able to buy a bakkie or two, and that's the vehicle which they use to transport the produce and to be able to sell these produce. Now, in these cooperatives, I would find that there are possibly about 10 to 20 people that are working there and rely on the single bakkie. Now, with that bakkie having been stolen, it means that these people will not be able to live. Now, it's one person that I'm talking about. They have families. So one person is there, but they're responsible for an average about 10 people or so. Now, you can just count how many people as a result suffer because of these crimes. Taking away that one bakkie means taking away the livelihood of about 200 people. It means about 200 children might not be able to go to school because their parents can no longer afford to pay for them. So it's really crippling that community. It's really difficult to see. They were living in constant fear. There were also, these gangs were very, very brutal. Initially, they would come in, hold people hostage while they ensured that the other gangs would then drive the vehicle, would only release the people after about 6 or 7 hours of holding women, children hostage. And then in the past months, we then saw them becoming more violent. Men were tortured, women were raped, children assaulted. It was really, really becoming a crisis situation. And they were saying that that is when they then called on the president as the last person who would have been able to come in and intervene.
The president has heeded the call of both the chief and the local community there. I want to talk quickly about these vehicles and how they get across the border. Is there an element of collusion with officials at border posts and that kind of thing? We saw in the clip that the Hawks saying that they've now posted people there.
Well, these seems like, from what we get from the community as well, and obviously from law enforcement, Eben, and I must say, of course, that some of the investigations are still continuing, but there definitely is. These are syndicates that are operating in Mozambique and South Africa. So the vehicles seem that they're ordered from Mozambique, and these criminals they are out for these vehicles, and then there are the guys who come in and will commit the robberies. They're the ones who are responsible for then stealing these cars. The cars are then taken and are smuggled through the border into Mozambique. Of course, when they get to the other side, we do not know as yet who the buyers are, but there seemingly is, because of the numbers of people. You heard from that report that I also filed that about 3-month period, we understood that about over 60 vehicles were stolen. So that just showed that in a week, the locals were telling us that about 6 or 7 vehicles were being stolen per week. The Hawks have come in, yes, to investigate, and since the Hawks have been coming in, we have seen them making some arrests. There have, in fact, been a number of arrests that the Hawks have made, taking them not only in the area, but one of the arrests was, in fact, it took place, it was an arrest that was made in Isipingo in Durban. Yeah. So that just shows you that this is a wide net that these syndicates are operating, not only, we understand, in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, but they're also in Gauteng, they're in the Free State, they're in Mpumalanga, because some of the vehicles were stolen from those areas and then made their way to the border. But from the president's visit, there is certainly, and I was just speaking to the people of Manguzi before coming to do my interview today, and they were saying that in as much as, yes, they complained and they wrote those letters to the president, but after the president's intervention, they must say that there has really been a decrease in these types of crimes. They were just telling me from the Jozini CPF, the CPF chairperson, they was telling me that in the last week or so, or not even the last week, he said in the last 2 weeks, they've only had 3 vehicles stolen, 2 of which were recovered. And he's saying that is largely due to the intervention after the president's visit, and they're extremely grateful for that. The Minister of Police, well, the former Minister of Police, Nathi Nhleko, also then promised that they were going to deploy police from other provinces. Those police officers are indeed there, and they have been working around the clock. They've continued to make a number of arrests, and have also been able to recover a number of cars that have been stolen. So certainly the community saying that they applaud the police intervention.
So the presidential intervention is working on the ground there. That's the good news. The people there, they initially wanted a more permanent intervention. They wanted a wall built, if I remember correctly. Is that still the case?
Well, part of these interventions, Eben, is the call for what they call New Jersey barriers, which the government and the government of KwaZulu-Natal is actually working on that as we speak. When the president was there, he was taken to the border fence and he was shown what the National Defence Force has been able to do. And they've temporarily put up these huge rocks in spots. There were certain locations that had been identified as the areas where these vehicles are passing through. Now, since those rocks have been erected in those key locations, there has been a decrease in these cars being able to then cross into Mozambique. But there is going to be a more permanent on, and the community have been saying that they're very delighted at that. Of course, the president also then visited the Manguzi police station, which he said that it was tacky, and he then promised that when he returns on April 27th, when Freedom Day will now be celebrated in the area of Manguzi, the president said he will then also give an update to the community on what has been done so far and the plans going forward.
Ayanda, thank you very much for that update. That's Ayanda Mhlongo coming to you live from Durban. Yes, the Freedom Day celebrations will be taking place in that area next week. It'll be live on this channel. Don't miss it. Of course, we're asking you the question today. How should South Africa deal with escalating cross-border crimes? Yes, we see it in Jozini and Manguzi, but also elsewhere. There also, of course, going to be a conversation around around other crimes happening here in South Africa. Sonmabile tweets us, he says, DHA has dismally failed to address this problem. I think law enforcement should take over this job of controlling borders. Tough stance, he says, is what's needed. Nomiso Duma says, our soldiers are not doing that much at the moment. They should be deployed there. They would beg to differ, Ndumiso. Musi Mkhotlan, he tweets us, he says, man the borders, placing South Africa first. Vet migrants impose hefty sentences on such criminals. Does that sound absurd? Many people would agree with you. Andrew tweets us, he says, crime won't fall because cops are the real criminals. Yes, this is a theme that constantly pops up, the one around bribes and around collusion. Anyhow, let's take a look at what's on social media right now. Now, the big trend is hashtag Cyril Ramaphosa, whose speech at the Economic Recovery Engagement dinner in Sandton last night brought clarity on the moves to bring about radical economic transformation. And he wowed his listeners. He highlighted corruption and state capture and says that he won't allow this to compromise the nation. Max Dupré tweeted, he said, love him or hate him, Ramaphosa's speech at the Black Business Council is impressive and his radical economic transformation has real substance, he says. Then another anti-apartheid stalwart has passed away. PAC member Philip Khosana died at the age of 80 years old in Pretoria. He led tens of thousands of people in a march against past laws in Cape Town in 1960. Yes, a real struggle icon. Of course, Pastor Timothy Omotoso, who is alleged to have raped several young female congregants, is expected to hand himself over to police. That's according to the Hawks, who have been in pursuit of him. The hashtag is Omotoso. Now let's take a look at our picture of the day. This one comes from Dimitri, and it's captioned, congrats to Serena Williams too. Yeah, she won the Australian Open pregnant, he says. Of course, Serena tweeted this picture yesterday. 20 weeks pregnant, she said. That's the picture in the yellow costume with the baby bump. And yes, she played pregnant at the Australian Open and won her 23rd Grand Slam, no less. Can you imagine that? This tweet from Spanish Barty, and it says, Serena Williams won the Australian Open pregnant, and sometimes I get a little winded when I try to just talk and walk at the same time. Yeah, she's a superstar. They call her the GOAT. The GOAT. Serena the GOAT. Greatest of all time. You didn't know what that stands for. Anyhow, let's take a look at what's happening in the courts today. Port Elizabeth, the man who was arrested for the gruesome murder of a 4-year-old toddler, is expected to appear in a local court there. The baby went missing and body pieces were later discovered in the uncle's bedroom when family members forced entry to the man's room. He just returned from prison for a similar offence. It's one that has disturbed South Africa, and we'll look at this kind of crimes in the next week or so on the show. We're going to take a little break. When we come back, we're talking about cross-border crime, and we'll focus on stock theft next, because that is as bad as vehicle theft. So don't go away.
Health Talk unpacks healthy tips to help you to practice healthy living lifestyles.
Now, generally, type 1 is found mostly in children and young adults, and with type 2 diabetes is found mainly in the older generation, and also with an issue of obesity.
Don't have second portions, and then I've brought this plate model to show that for both meals, your lunch, your dinner, half a plate should be vegetables.
Within sports, we see the spectrum itself. Most often we see minor head contact injuries, we call them.
Right.
But certainly in sports, the one that a lot of attention is paid to is concussion.
You see, you've got something, boom, but it's uncontrolled. Whereas in soccer, when the guy hits the ball, it's controlled. His neck muscles are controlling it. And that's why they say, for instance, in rugby, the training should be to improve your neck strength.
For more on health, join your host Dr. Selo Mutaong every Saturday from 9 to 10 a.m.
Now, stock theft is escalating, and the National Stock Theft Prevention Forum says a special police unit is failing to manage the situation. Now, in the northwest, more than 100 cattle that were stolen have been reclaimed by farmers at Pella and Matlako near Zeerust. The National Stock Theft Prevention Forum says the justice system is failing them. However, police say they are trying their very best. Now, to talk to us about stock theft, we are joined from our Pretoria studios by the chairperson of the National Stock Theft Prevention Forum, Willie Clark. Willie, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Well, thank you. Morning.
Willie, according to your information, is there an increase in stock theft in South Africa?
Indeed, there is an increase. The latest statistics that we have is that there's an escalation of about 2%, an increase. But the biggest problem we have with stock theft in South Africa is the fact that the non-reporting figures is increasing to such an extent that we really cannot actually rely on our statistics anymore, because according to Statistics South Africa, the underreporting of stock theft currently is around about 70%. So we don't really know what is happening with stock theft, but from the information that we receive, we're not now talking about statistics, it's definitely on the rise.
Tell us about the contributing factors if there's a rise in the stock theft, and why do you think it is escalating?
You know, the biggest problem or the biggest motivator for people stealing stock is the fact that stock never loses its value. The moment you steal it, you either go and sell it in abattoir, you either take it to an auction and you get the money, or you simply just consume it and you really have the value. It's not the same as with other economic objects or commodities, where the moment it's stolen, it loses its value. In the case of stock, it always keeps its value, and it makes it very lucrative for the perpetrator to steal the stock.
Now, when it comes to stock theft, Willie, which areas are mostly affected?
You know what, as I always tell the people, that you can actually draw a half moon around KwaZulu-Natal. If you start at Umtata and you go a half moon around Lesotho through KwaZulu-Natal and straight in Gauteng, into Gauteng through the Free State, that's actually where our biggest problem is with stock theft in South Africa currently, and that's been like that for the past 20 years.
Now, as the forum, you are saying that the South African police are unable to curb and to handle these cases. Why do you say that?
No, our biggest problem is not we have a special units in South Africa dealing with stock theft, the livestock theft units. They're not our biggest problems. Our biggest problems are the people in the normal police stations, where people need to go and report cases, where people don't want to take their cases, where, according to our information, a lot of those police officers is involved in the stock theft, and they make deals with communities like, yeah, if you report your stock theft, it's fine, we will go and look for your stock, but if we find them, we take 50% for ourselves. Those kind of allegations is made on a daily basis. And, but from the livestock theft units themselves, we get the best support that we can. And yeah, they're not always sufficient, or they don't only always find the cattle back, but at least we get a lot of joy from those people in the specialized units.
Now, the South African National Defence Force launched Operation Corona in 2014. In that year, 3,000 illegal immigrants were arrested. Is that operation still running? And is it a sensible thing to still incorporate it and work with you as the forum to stop this stock theft across the borders?
In fact, Corona is still carrying on. They still have units all across. There's units on the Zimbabwe border. There's units on the Lesotho border, because that's where we have our biggest problem of stock theft. It's actually on the Lesotho borders, where stock is not only just stolen in South Africa and taken over to Lesotho, but currently we have a problem of stock stolen in Lesotho being taken into South Africa and then sold in auctions and those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. But are they effective?
The main thing is we really appreciate Corona.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me?
Are they effective, Willie?
The main thing is, you know what, I think they are effective, they do have an impact, but they can be much more effective, because I don't think they always have enough resources to do what we require of them to do.
Let's take a look at the farmers, and as the Stock Theft Prevention Forum, what are you doing to manage and contain the situation, and are you assisting these farmers whose stock are being stolen and taken across the border?
In fact, we are. You know, it's to explain how the forum works and how it actually functions is going to take me a long time. But we are in each and every province. We do have a livestock prevention forum. There is people involved there, and they work with the police. They work with the prosecutors. They work with all the people involved in agriculture, and where we can, we really try and support these people to find their cattle back, to get people found guilty in court, sent to prison, and all those kind of things. So we're highly involved in about everything that is there to prevent livestock theft in South Africa.
From the forum's perspective, what else do you think can be done in order to curb the scourge, especially on our border, which is impacting on our economy?
Well, I think the biggest problem we have with Lesotho is the fact that our border there is very easy to cross. I mean, when it's not the rainy season, people get across the Caledon River very, very easily. From the KwaZulu-Natal side, we also have a problem there with it's very mountainous and it's rugged terrain. And we need better technology, we need better resources. And currently, from our perspective, is the fact that we don't have enough vehicles in the specialized units. Our specialized unit is under-resourced when it gets to human, to staff. I mean, there's a lot of these units that's running on a 40–30% capacity of staff. If all those things get into place, and we're really trying to do that, we will be able to cure stock theft or curb it to a certain extent. But we must always remember that even as from Bible's times, livestock theft is the first crime that's actually described within the Bible. And a lot of people don't acknowledge that we're not going to cure it in total, but we can reduce it at the end of the day.
What about farmers? Can they insure against stock theft?
That's one. No, they cannot. There is not insurance for stock theft, for stock at the present moment, especially not commercial stock. But for stud animals, there are insurance, but it's very, very expensive. And currently, it's not been explored, but we are busy working with some insurance companies to see what we can do. And at the end of the day, we want to get insurance for livestock.
Mr. Clack, I thank you so much for your time and joining us.
That's a pleasure. Thank you.
That was the chairperson of the National Stock Theft Prevention Forum, Willie Clack. He was in our Pretoria studios. It's an increase of stock, or escalation of stock theft across our borders. And that's why we're asking you this question. How do you think South Africa should deal with the escalating cross-border crimes? Let's take a look at what you have to say on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. This one from Silence says, first, deal with internal crime before you even think of crossing the borders. If you fail at home, do you think that you will make it anywhere? Question from Silence. Silence is golden, they say. Sipho says, to deal with crimes in border police needs to intensify the laws. Also, there must be cooperation amongst these countries. Now, that's a very solid view there from Sipho. Sonwabile says, DHA has dismally failed to address this problem. I think law enforcement should take over this job of controlling the borders. These are some of your comments. Now, you can keep on coming, keep them coming on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle, and we'll read them as we continue. But right now, let's take a look at what's happening on our Facebook page. And the first story there that you see, a toddler missing since Easter Monday has been killed and cannibalized outside Port St. John's in Eastern Cape. That is a horrible story. Then we move over to Gambia, where public life has dramatically changed since the departure of the former president Yahya Jammeh. And of course, there you see Yahya Jammeh there. And then finally, China's foreign ministry said on Wednesday Interpol had issued a red notice for Zhu Wenggu, a controversial property tycoon who has made claims of high-level corruption within the ruling Communist Party. Now, those are all your stories on the Facebook page. There's more. You can go there on the SABC News website. Find it all there. We will take a break, and after that, we continue with the scourge of cross-border crimes. Ike Partler will be here in studio with us from National Sandparks. We'll be speaking to Evan. We'll take a break.
A meteorite hit the Earth 2 million years ago, creating an enormous impact of crater, about 10 kilometers in diameter, near Vredefort in the Free State, 100 kilometers southwest of Johannesburg, now known as the Vredefort Dome, a South African World Heritage Site. The meteorite is said to have been larger than Table Mountain and caused a 1,000 megaton blast of energy. The impact would have heated about 70 cubic kilometers of rock and have increased the Earth's oxygen levels to a degree that made the development of multicellular life possible. The world has about 130 crater structures of possible impact origin. The Vredefort Dome is the largest in the world, followed by Sudbury Crater in Canada and the Chicxulub Crater in Mexico.
Welcome back here with Newsroom here on SABC News. Of course, we're looking at cross-border crimes this morning, and South Africa is in the midst of a catastrophic rhino poaching crisis. Yes, Mozambique, one of our neighboring countries, has been identified as a key role player in this. Now, SA National Parks, in conjunction with the NPA, have warned that criminals who continue with rhino poaching in this country will face the full might of the law. A regional court to focus on rhino poaching has been inaugurated and is based at the Kruger National Park. More than 7,000 rhinos reside inside of the park. The vast majority of rhino killed in South Africa are poached in the Kruger Park. The park shares a long, porous border, around 356 kilometers, with Mozambique, where most of the poachers come from, they say. Poachers from Mozambique are easily able to illegally slip across the border into the park. Now, I'm with Sandparks media specialist Ike Partler this morning to talk about this and other issues. Very good morning to you, Ike. Thanks for coming in and talking to us.
Thank you very much for inviting us. You always do when we have some updates to share.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you know, it's one of our national treasures, isn't it? The Kruger National Park.
Definitely is, and a global one at that.
I want to talk to you first about the court. Tell us a little bit about the court that's now been inaugurated there, and what's the sort of purpose, and how do you think this will change the game a little bit?
The court is in Skukuza. It used to be a periodical court, periodical, operating only one day on Wednesdays. When you've arrested people over 7 days, then they would make their first appearance there before charges are put to them, and then it gets distributed to other courts. But as of the 17th of March, the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development decided that this should be a regional court where all cases are going to be heard. And we are excited about that because it's going to expedite high-profile poaching cases. instead of people moving out of the park to go and face the music, they then face it in there.
Yeah.
And it's also meant by some of the most professional prosecutors, Sansi Fenter being one of them. Those people have a 100% conviction rate in that case. And that shows the element that we have in the park of cooperation between the NPA, the SAPS, and the SANDF.
Yeah.
Because all of these elements have to come together to have a solid case to present to the court, and for the court to be able to reach a reasonable, conviction.
Yeah. It's often painted that the assault on the rhinos in the Kruger National Park comes from illegal immigrants or communities inside of Mozambique. But when we look at the bigger picture, these aren't the only bad guys, is it? In South Africa, we have entire, I don't know what to call it, communities or entire syndicates that operate that benefit the most from the poaching that's going in. Would that be a fair assessment?
Illegal wildlife trade is a global phenomenon, and it affects each and every country. In India, we know that the tigers have been decimated. We know that bears are also being in the Americas. So South Africa is not an island in that. We are fortunate in a sense that we have a minister who has been very supportive. She's been to Mozambique to sign MOUs. Remember that poaching wasn't a criminal offense in Mozambique, but since she went there, interacted with her counterparts, she has been able to make them change their minds. Now you can be convicted for poaching. There has been closer cooperation between Mozambique and South Africa in terms of the Kruger National Park. We have seen periodic interactions between colleagues on the ground as well as higher up. So in that instance, there is something there. But the consumer states that's in East Asia, we have quite a strong NGO presence there. People that are going there to educate the consumers that what you think Rhino horn does for you definitely doesn't do that. And we are very appreciative of those efforts. Our minister also went there to go and sign an MOU. So we see that there is quite a lot of lobbying that's taking place. Obviously, even it's going to take some time for it to take root.
Yeah. This, I see in the Far East, for instance, they're now using celebrities, Jackie Chan and these kinds of, to debunk all the myths around rhino horn. There's a lot of myth around what it cures and what it does. But one of the things that's disturbing, and it must be quite difficult for you guys to overcome, is the fact that people see it as a statement of wealth, and would keep an entire rhino horn in their homes to show their wealth. How do you overcome that sort of thing when it's not being used as a potion, for instance?
Well, it's decades-long beliefs that are going to take quite a lot of effort to actually demystify all of that. And I think education and using those celebrities. Every year we do host celebrities from the Far East to come and go back. People who have got a huge following on their Twitter accounts, on their Facebook accounts, and all we can do is just hope that it will get through. But what we are supposed to do in the park, we definitely are doing in terms of trying to secure the assets that we are keeping for South Africans and the globe.
I want to talk quickly about international treaties and how that kind of thing would change the game, and also the establishment of the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park. Do you see the benefits of that already?
We definitely are seeing the benefits of that. In Mozambique, for instance, people are being moved out of the park because the biggest problem is that some of these parks when you established the Greater Limpopo Park, was that there were still communities that are living there. And those communities would be used as a springboard into the Kruger National Park. There is movement towards that. We have seen some of the commanders in Mozambique interacting with our Ranger Corps leadership, and there is greater cooperation. Every week they do hold meetings where they strategize on how to combat this. And we have seen a reduction as a result of that in terms of poaching stats. Year on year, 2016, 2017, we've seen about a 21% decrease. And that says a lot about the efforts that we are putting.
Yeah, that's the good news. I want to close, and I just want to do a bit of housekeeping because it's a park that belongs to all of us, and the fight is all of our fight in the end. We've seen lots of drought. We've seen lots of flooding now. What's the state of the park? What is it like now if we talk about health and animals and so forth?
Well, fortunately, the drought has been broken by the beautiful rains that we had just at the beginning of the year. But it's obviously going to take some time to recover. But if you go into the Kruger Park now, it will be difficult to spot game, unlike 6 months before where it was just dry. And right now it's very green and lush, and the animals are thriving. So we hope that it will be a short recovery.
Well, Ike, it's great to have you with us. Ike is Sandpark's media specialist, and we're talking about, well, cross-border crimes within South Africa's, and of course, one of the hotspots is the Kruger National Park, where, well, we're starting to, well, turn the tide, if one can call it that. Thanks, Ike, for coming in today. Of course, we're asking you the question, how do we deal with escalating cross-border crimes now? You've sent us lots of ideas. We've put forward lots of questions. Let's take a couple more tweets of what you guys are telling us with regards to this. Alex tweets us. He says, that thing of opening our borders by political decisions is wrong. Even in inland, people steal our property and send it abroad, says Alex. Meethle says, the promotion of a shared understanding and common vision of how we as a nation are going to tackle crime. That's what's needed. Love you, SABC. Thank you. We love you too, Mitle. Keep on watching us. Silence Mugatsa says, Newsroom, first deal with internal crime before you even think cross-border. If you fail at home, do you think you will make it anywhere else? Talking about SA being a crime hub. Yes, Silence, we have to come to terms with all of this as a nation, for sure, no doubt. Of course, part of that means we have to be financially afloat as a country. Yes, our economy needs to grow, they tell us. And the finance minister, Malisi Kegaba, he's in the United States to try and win over investors. And we ask you the question, what are your hopes? 206 of you have voted now, and tell us, most of you, 68% say no, we don't have much hope of him winning over investors. That's a little bit of a negative outlook, is it? Has South Africa's outlook become a little bit negative? Anyhow, Caleb tweets us, he says, Kigaba can win this, but the problem can be our opposition. We have opposition that care less about the country, says Caleb. Interesting view, that. Katlejo says, his poor background in business and economics, I doubt he will win more investors. I see he wants to make his own decisions. But Trevor Manuel, Katlejo, didn't have, for instance, Trevor Manuel didn't have a background in economics, and some of our other finance ministers and so forth. So maybe we should give each other a chance to get the job done here in South Africa. The world of football has been providing most of the headlines in the last 24 hours, and our focus today, sports focus in the first hour, well, we'll look at the PSL and we'll look at the Champions League as well, because there's some great games last night. But I want to talk quickly about the PSL and Sundowns. Winners always finish strong, and they look to be coming into a bit of form at the right time.
They've cranked it up again. A lot of people were a little worried that they were going to lose momentum from before they went on their African safari, if I could say. And they seem to have pulled their socks up and are winning again and mounting a proper title defense.
The two teams that are right in it is Cape Town City, of course, and Wits.
Absolutely.
Gavin Hunt's team, they got a couple of games in hand, don't they?
Yeah, look, Sunrise have got 2 games in hand. Started off this year with 5 games in hand. It's been whittled down to just 2. And what we're looking at right now is the log standing at the stands from last night's matches. As you can see, this title race is really hot. Eben, I mean, starting looking at 4th place to the 1st. It's literally just 2 points in it. Chiefs are there, Wits are there, Cape Town City are in the mix. And it's going to be very interesting to see how the rest of the season pans out.
Absolutely. Got our eye on the PSL. Let's quickly talk about last night. Were you surprised by Monaco?
Not at all. Monaco, Kylian Mbappe has been a revelation of note. I actually saw a photograph of Kylian when he was about 12 or 13 with his hero, Real Madrid star Cristiano Ronaldo, and he's right up there now. He's competing against the best of the best, and they've got a brand of football that's really exciting, Eben, and really nice to look at, especially in the latter stages of the Europe's continental showpiece.
Mbappe is going to be sold for £80 million, no doubt, in less than 3 months. But this game, Barca went out without a whimper.
Basically they had like 1 or 2 shots on target and lots that they were trying to get into the area, then they couldn't get it. Juventus, come se dice, el Signora Vecchia, she was amazing. Juve was absolutely phenomenal. Massimiliano Allegri and his side were just phenomenal over the Barca side. Couldn't get Lightning to strike twice. And of course, we're now looking at the visuals of the Monaco destruction of Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah, this guy, Mbappe, I really like him. Mendy as well. Mendy's a cracking player. But they're definitely going to be in England next season, no doubt. The pound is strong, man.
Yeah, what I really liked about what's happened with Falcao is we saw Falcao in the Premier League and he was really out of sorts. There was nowhere. Couldn't believe that this was the same person they were talking about. He's gone back to his mother club and he's been phenomenal.
People won't want to admit it, but he was injured for the entire 3 years that he like to get R1 million a week while I'm injured. Anyhow, thank you, Kendall. Kendall will be back at about 10:40 to give us a complete roundup of last night. If you've missed it, it's really exciting stuff. As we's here, let's get a weather update.
Thanks very much and warm welcome. Let's take a look at your weather details on our satellite image. You're still seeing lots of moisture situated over the eastern parts of SADC going towards the interior. So you can see some bit of clouds over the interior of Botswana. For South Africa, over the central regions, we are expecting clear skies for today, but just partly cloudy towards the eastern parts due to that low pressure system driving in cooler air over the interior and resulting to clouds, and drizzle can be expected over the high-lying areas of Limpopo going to Mpumalanga. Up to 60% chance of showers expected for today over the interior of Namibia and clear over the central interior. Over Congo, we're still expecting 30 to 60% chance of thunder showers for today and tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're still seeing clear skies over most parts of South Africa. Towards the eastern parts, drizzle over the high-lying areas of Limpopo and Mpumalanga again, with partly cloudy skies over those regions. Your temperatures will sit at 26 for Pretoria, 25 for Polokwane, drizzle expected over the high-lying areas of Limpopo and Mpumalanga. Going to KwaZulu-Natal, seeing partly cloudy skies over Richards Bay at 20 degrees, getting clear as you move towards the interior. Bloemfontein at 23 degrees. Over the Cape region, we are expecting isolated clouds over the interior of Eastern Cape. Komani at 22. 33 will be your maximum over Cape Town. Very hot. Vredendal at 37 and 29 over Uppington. Alexander Bay at a maximum of 36 degrees. Mariental at a maximum of 31 degrees, and we are expecting 30% chance of showers going to the northern parts. Over Kitmanshoop going to the southern parts, partly cloudy skies to clear skies. Luderitz at a maximum of 34, Oraniamund at 33. Towards the northern parts of Namibia, we're still expecting partly cloudy skies and isolated over the central interior. If you will be in the northern parts, just expect partly cloudy skies. Temperatures in the high 20s over most parts. Oshakati at a maximum of 29. Over Botswana, we're still expecting sunny skies over most parts, but currently you can see some few clouds over the central interior. Hakunzi and Tabong will be partly cloudy for today. Francistown at a maximum of 28. Zimbabwe, we're seeing 30% chance of showers over Pindura. That's the far northern parts of Zimbabwe. Over the interior, it's partly cloudy, and over the east-western parts, we are expecting partly cloudy skies. Bulawayo at 24 and 27 for Victoria Falls. Mutare at a maximum of 24 degrees. Bay Bridge at 32. Hot temperatures expected going to Limpopo. Lichinga, a maximum of 24. Mostly sunny skies expected. Pemba, 30% chance of showers expected. Nampula at 28. Kweleman at a maximum of 30 degrees with partly cloudy skies. Showers can be expected over Shai and Maputo for today. Temperatures in the high 20s to low 30s. Over Madagascar, we're still expecting rainfall over the interior. Farafangana at 29 degrees. Otherwise, just partly cloudy skies expected over the southern interior. Towards the northern parts, we're still seeing Mahajanga at a maximum of 31 degrees. Partly cloudy skies for today. Tomashina at 31. Rainfall can be expected over the northern interior. And that is all from the weather desk. Ndayendo.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Media Monitor. I'm your host, Alicia Jali. What has been happening on the digital front?
To win the CAF Championship, was a huge thing, and perhaps we ought to have celebrated him even more.
Absolutely.
73% of our schools, regardless whether they're in the township or they're in urban areas, if you go to those schools, you are guaranteed a matric pass.
It is the one thing that we haven't done well as a country. We have thrown money at it. I mean, if you ask for figures, you'll be told we're spending well in education.
90 billion.
But the performance of the system has not been good enough.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody. It's just gone 10 o'clock. Central African time, that is, if you're watching anywhere else in the world. I'm with Kendall Makamati. Morning, Kendall.
Good morning. Fantastic night of football. Lots to talk about this morning.
Yeah, lots to talk about. Full sport, but also we're focusing, of course, as you know, Newsroom, we always take issue with something. Today we're talking cross-border crimes, such as vehicle and stock theft. We've dealt with that, of course. Community are saying that this is threatening their livelihoods. In the border towns all across our country, and they're very concerned. So we put this question on screen, and you guys have been tweeting us already, Kendall. How should South Africa deal with escalating cross-border crime?
Considering the massive borders we've got, definitely something worth looking into. And I do believe that we've actually had quite a few responses this morning already.
Yeah, people
very
are.
Interesting responses.
Yeah, do we have those, guys? Okay, let's have a look. There we go. Okay, here's a picture that's been sent in by one of you guys. Who sent us a picture? It says, "This is the border fence." It looks very rickety, to be honest. How do you manage a border that looks like that? That is a border fence between South Africa and Mozambique, we are told. Are there any other tweets coming in, guys? There we go. This one from Barry Martin. He says, "Newsroom, deploy commanders on our borders and bring the border police inland because they trained for domestic problems," I think is what Barry is talking about.
Sipo says that there must be a full force when fighting with thugs because they also don't have mercy. They shoot to kill. Police must not be lenient.
Yes, Minister Razmataz has said that. We're going to shoot to kill. Well, he didn't say that, but the intention is there. Selo Mohale says, "We have the nicest constitution in the world and criminals find ways to abuse it." Yes, Selo, it's not a unique problem, though, to South Africa.
And Alex Motapo tweets us saying, "Our guards are taking too much bribes. We cannot stop that."
Yeah, bribery is a constant theme also that talks to the issue of cross-border crime and crime in general in South Africa. Of course, we're also running a poll, Kendall. The Finance Minister is trying to woo investors as we speak right now.
Yeah, it's on a road trip to the United States. We've got 217 votes that have come in. And our question really is, do you think that the Gigaba's tour will win over investors? And 32% of the 217 votes are saying yes only.
A negative outlook by more than 2/3 of those that are voting and viewing us right now. That's interesting. Anyhow, what are you tweeting us? Let's see what the guys are saying that are tweeting us. Alex says...
He says, "I'm doubtful."
Oops. That's kind of a sentiment. Sipo, he says, yes, 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 he will. Why not? No one was born with experience, even if he doesn't have one. Bottom line, he will. We support him, says Sipo.
And Sipo weighs on and he carries on saying, "Yes, he will. Why don't we support him? If we are negative, trust me, God will surprise the negative ones. We are praying for him."
Yeah, keep tweeting us, guys. Keep telling us what you think. This is the Newsroom show. Anyhow, there's a lot of housekeeping too. We've done some interesting cases also. Before the courts today, let's take a look at our top stories. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa has come out in support of government's radical economic transformation plan. Finance Minister Malisi Gigaba is in Washington for a multi-city roadshow of the United States where he hopes to woo investors and meet ratings agency Moody's. course, the Hawks have confirmed that the head of the Jesus Dominion International Church, Tim Omotoso, will hand himself over to the police in Port Elizabeth today. Well, those are your top stories. Let's go over to Kendall for the sport.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. You know, after that first comeback by Barcelona over PSG, I put money on this one.
That was money not well spent, unfortunately,
Yeah,
my friend. You know, they say lightning don't strike in the same place twice.
Exactly. Now my wife has found out what I did with that 20 bucks that was in the kitchen. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
Attempts at intimidation. Now, header! It's one of those games that would have taken a dead ball to break the deadlock.
As the race for the PSL title heats up, Mamelodi Sundowns complete the double over Vuwani rival SuperSport United, edging them by a single goal to nil.
Is Mendy so progressive, so attacking as a left back and getting the shot away. It's parried out. It's 1-0 to Monaco.
Monaco in scintillating form once again as they ripped through Dortmund's defence, crushing them 3-1 on the night and 6-3 on aggregate to advance to the UEFA Champions League semi-finals.
Oh, is this his first touch? It is! What an impact! And Valère Germain is the man who has put Monaco into the semi-finals of the Champions League.
It was a big factor in deciding to play, to go with Keshav, because he does offer you a bit more batting depth than a guy like Shams would offer you, then a bit more batting depth than a guy than Pengis would offer you.
Cricket South Africa names a strong squad for the ICC Champions Trophy with one surprise inclusion, that of left-arm spinner Keshav Maharaj. All this in more detail at 10:40. Do stay with us and make sure that you stay around because Evan has got the news.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kendall. Kendall will be back with us, as I said, at 10:40 to give you a complete update. Now, our top story at 10 o'clock is this one. The Hawks have confirmed that the head of the Jesus Dominion International Church, Timothy Omotoso, will hand himself over to the police in Port Elizabeth today. The unit has been looking for him since an SABC special assignment expose on allegations of rape of young women against him. Omotoso is a Nigerian national and he's been in hiding since. The Hawks have denied bungling the arrest of the renowned self-styled prophet. The unit was due to arrest him at an Easter crusade in Bloemfontein last week, but allegedly arrived after he had left. Girls as young as 14 have accused Omotoso of luring them to his Umhlanga home to molest them. He allegedly molested more than 30 young girls on the pretext of rescuing them from drugs. Now, for more on the story, let's go to our reporter, Jay Lee Polzer. She is in Port Elizabeth. A very good morning to you, Jay. Just give us a quick idea. What's the latest with regards to Tim Omotoso today?
Good morning, Eben. That's quite right. We are crossing to you live from the Hawks compound here in Port Elizabeth that is neatly tucked away in the suburban areas. And it is here where the Nigerian pastor, Tim Omotoso, will be arrested. Now, there has been some confusion as to what time that arrest will be taking place. He was expected to hand himself over at 2 o'clock this afternoon, but my source tells me that there has been a delay in his flight. So he will only be arriving later this afternoon. He will be handing himself over to the Hawks. He's accompanied by his lawyer and he will be met by the lawyers here in Port Elizabeth as well. Now, many of you are wondering why travel all the way from Durban to hand yourself over to the Hawks in PE. Well, one of the victims of the congregation, the Jesus Dominion, has come forward and laid a official charge, and that is why he's being flown to Port Elizabeth this afternoon, and he will be giving himself over to the Hawks.
Is that the only rape case that's been opened at this point, or are there more? Are we expecting more?
Well, even I suppose we are expecting more people to come forward. I mean, it has been quite a delicate and sensitive case, you know, since the flighting of that special assignment viewing. There has been now this official charge that has been laid, and I suppose more people will come forward and lay more official charges. But, you know, looking at the congregation itself, I was there this morning at the Jesus Dominion, and it was closed. We were told that there would be a special congregation where he would have been, also there. speaking to the members of his church. However, he was not present and the church was closed this morning. But I can tell you the church is divided. There are those people who really do believe that Tim Omotoso is a spiritual man. They believe that he is a prophet, that he could never do these heinous crimes, and that this is really a spiritual attack on the prophet. So the church is divided. There are those who firmly believe in his innocence, but there are also those who are very upset about these new revelations that have come to the fore.
Chadley, just tell us quickly, recap for us the allegations against him. It's around 30 young women that are accusing him of illicit behavior, if one can call it that.
Yes, Elsie, as we know, there are two churches, the Jesus Dominion, one in Port Elizabeth and one in Durban. And there have been 30 of those victims coming to the fore, you know, giving their relaying and horrific tales, what happened to them, what Tim Omotoso did to them, how he lured them to his compound in Mhlanga. You know, many of the trips that he would take with young ladies to China, all over the world. And he would tell the congregation that he's choosing these specific young girls because they have been blessed. And those young ladies subsequently fell victim to Tim Omotoso. It was also being told, well, we saw in special assignment broadcast that, you know, those victims, some of them, many as 14, have only started speaking out now later on in life. So that has been years ago. But, you know, a source close to Mr. Tim Omotoso has said that this is just a spiritual attack. These are not true. These allegations are unfounded, that many of these young girls, you know, are only coming out because he was quite a leader in the church. He reprimanded many of the youngsters, kept them out of, you know, dealing in drugs, kept them off the streets. And this is really just an attack on a man, a good man, who they believe really helped the youngsters. And there were also stories, or rather my source told me there were stories of youngsters also drinking, you know, and smoking. And he would speak to them, telling them that, you know, stay away from drugs, turn your life around. And these are it's just sour grapes that have come to the fore. Those youngsters are just taking a backlash at the prophet. Yeah. But like I said, these are the tales that many have come forward and told. I suppose, and I presume that many more people will come forward and tell their tales, and hopefully also lay a charge. But that is still yet to be seen.
Chadley, before I let you go, of course, this issue has been in the news, and the Hawks have botched an arrest at an Easter crusade in Bloemfontein. What are the Hawks telling you about this missed arrest that happened in the Free State?
Yes, well, I've been in contact with the Hawks, and they have told me that the arrest will be made today. You know, they steered clear from the whole Bloemfontein fiasco that happened, but they did tell me that he will definitely be handing himself over today. They are in talks with the lawyer, so it really is just a process of him coming to this compound just behind me and giving himself over. And then he'll go into questioning. I suppose now that a charge has been laid, he will be charged. And we have yet to see if he will apply for a bail application.
Chadley, thank you very much for joining us there live from Port Elizabeth outside the Hawks compound there, bringing us the very latest, of course, on Timothy Omotoso. He's expected to be arrested or hand himself over at around 2 o'clock this afternoon. Of course, more than 30 allegations at this stage of rape against him and other sexual offences. I can tell you that on Monday we will look at, well, charismatic churches and Timothy Omotoso in depth on the Newsroom show. We'll talk to the CRL and also look at various other cases in this space, because it's something, well, that's becoming part of the fabric of our society. Simple thing that, well, people are being abused by their pastors. And we'll look at that in depth. Anyhow, we move on with the news. The big other story, of course, from last night is that radical economic transformation is a non-negotiable. That's according to the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa. The Deputy President says to transform the economy, government must increase skills, get black professionals to work with government, create more black industrialists, and develop SMMEs.
Term when we said government's program of radical economic transformation is about placing the economy on a quantitatively different path that ensures more rapid, sustainable growth, higher investment, increased employment, reduced inequality, and the deracialization of our economy. That's when the term started seeing the light of day. And of course, we've packed it with a whole number of things, and that term still needs further definition. And I would say those who are dismissing this term, they should sit down, listen, smell the coffee. Because this may be the time for you to smell the coffee and realize that the economic transformation of our country cannot be it's non-negotiable. It has to happen, and it is going to happen. Whether people like it or not, the economy has to be transformed, and it will be transformed.
Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba is in Washington for a multi-city roadshow of the United States. He plans to reassure investors and work to prevent South Africa from suffering a third downgrade from the ratings agency Moody's. Gigaba will also participate in the annual spring meetings of the International Monetary Fund as well as the World Bank.
His visit to the United States comes as the world economy begins to rebound. The IMF this week raising projections for world growth.
Things are really looking up at the moment. We've seen a string of good economic news since the middle of 2016, and we definitely see some momentum. We expected growth to rise in 2016, but we're raising our forecast even beyond what it was a couple of months ago to 3.5%, 6% next year.
Further positive news is that more robust demand has helped commodity prices recover from their troughs in 2016, while financial markets are buoyed by continued policy support in China and fiscal expansion in the United States. But risks remain.
Policymakers really need to raise their game in several respects. The open world trading system has promoted growth over decades, especially in emerging markets, but the gains have been distributed too unequally, as have the costs of adjustment to changing technology and changing trade. Policymakers need to think about policies that will equip workforces for structural transformation, help them adjust to all kinds of dislocations, and remain productive.
Level, policies are needed to help support the workers of today and also to train the workers of tomorrow. Closing the borders to trade will only worsen the situation. It would not bring jobs back. It would just make more jobs disappear.
With warnings that much of the outlook uncertainty is political.
Gigaba, in his first foray onto the international scene as finance minister, is that South Africa's economic challenges come at a time when the world economy is beginning to rebound after a tepid recovery precipitated by the financial crisis that began in 2007. But despite this positive global sentiment, international investors and policy stakeholders are eager to hear how he plans to stop the downward spiral, perceived or otherwise, and what radical economic transformation will mean for those with deep investment pockets sitting abroad. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
Running a poll on the finance minister's visit to the US, the whistle-stop whirlwind tour to try and win over investors. We're asking you, what do you think? Will Malusi Gigaba, will he win over investors? And you guys are not very hopeful at the moment. The 223 votes are in. More than two-thirds are saying, no, he won't win over investors, while 31% are quite positive. But what are you guys tweeting us? Let's have a look. Nolan Dunster with his latest one. He says, Moody's must also downgrade SA until the Khoisan is the custodian of a constitution. SA is junk, he says. That's a rather negative outlook, but it seems to be, there seems to be quite a few. Spiciso Seelan says, Newsroom, until MINC takes seriousness regards the concord of SA's rulings, Gigaba can go to the moon and gravitate for nothing, says Siso. Sipo tweets us again. He says, yes, we will support our finance minister because there's a reason why he's there, while opposition parties don't know, says Sipo. Yeah, that's the poll that we're running. Go and vote there. It'll be interesting to get your view. Moving on, the EFF has again invited members of the Tripartite Alliance to vote with them during the parliamentary vote of no confidence against President Jacob Zuma. Spokesperson Vuwani Ndlozi says the vote of no confidence is the easiest and fastest way of removing the president. He was participating in a public debate on the crisis facing the ANC, facilitated by the Alternative Information and Development Centre in Cape Town.
COSATU and the SACP believe they've made a fundamental mistake by supporting President Zuma and Polokwane. Ndlozi agreed and invited them to vote with opposition parties during a vote of no confidence against the president.
If we do not remove Zuma now, you will not be able to remove him in the ANC in 2017 December. That is a fact, and you'll remember us.
The SACP does not believe that a vote of no confidence will be a quick fix to the problems faced by the ANC and the country.
I'm not sure that he is going to be removed through the parliamentary vote, whether it's a secret ballot or not. And even if he is removed, he remains still the president of the ANC.
Speakers also agreed that marches against President Zuma should be supported across party political lines, but COSATU insisted it is not going to join the marches.
COSATU said that they're not going to join this protest. And the reason why they're not joining this protest is because we think this is a squabble between the thieves. The thieves who had stolen under apartheid want to hold on to what they've stolen. The thieves who are stealing today with Zuma want the space to be able to steal more. None of them ever have concerns about what happens to the poor and the working class.
The speakers also dismissed a call for a radical economic transformation as factional posturing by President Zuma and his supporters within the ANC.
PAC stalwart Philip Atta Khosana has died in Pretoria. He was 80 years old. Now, according to South African History Online, Khosana was born in 1936 in Makapanstad in the then northern Transvaal. He is the son of a minister and graduated from the Ladies Selborne High School in Pretoria in 1985. In January of 1960, he became the regional secretary of the PAC for the Western Cape. His fame skyrocketed when he emerged as the spokesperson for 30,000 African demonstrators who marched into the center of Cape Town on March 30. In December of that same year, while Khosana was on trial with other members of the PAC, he jumped bail and skipped the country. While in exile, he enrolled as a military cadet at the Ethiopian Military Academy. From 1974 to 1996, Khosana worked with the UN Children's Fund as a program development officer. He served the UN in various countries around the world. Khosana returned to South Africa in 1996 after his retirement from the UN. From the year 2000 to 2006, Khosana served as a local councillor in the Tshwane Metropolitan Municipal Council. Former SABC COO Claudi Mutseneng says the financial crisis facing the broadcaster has nothing to do with his leadership. He defended his tenure and some of his controversial policies at a media briefing yesterday.
Mutseneng emerging after months of silence, saying he's not responsible for the SABC's multi-billion rand debt.
I have never said that there was no money at the SABC. I said when I left SABC, there was money. It was 800 million.
Backed by vocal supporters and local artists, Mutseneng took aim at Parliament's ad hoc committee.
The ad hoc committee has caused havoc. Yes. The question that we need to ask, why they could not ask a Saudi? Yes. When from day one, everyone was saying, hey, that Saudi, he took decision alone. Hey, which means I'm powerful, man. Yeah. One man just take decision alone when you have a board accounting authority. It can't be right.
A policy prohibits employees from taking to the media on internal issues.
The board has taken a decision that they are not going to communicate with him through the media. Therefore, we are not going to be in a position to respond to the issues that he is raising we will then deal with him as an employee of the organization directly as we would do with any other employee of the organization.
The DA also weighed in.
We therefore believe that it's time the interim board, showed its teeth and followed the SABC's own rules and removed Mr. Motsoeneng from office.
Among Motsoeneng's decisions was a multi-million rand contract with MultiChoice, banning of protest visuals and a 90% local music quota on SABC platforms. The SABC's interim board is currently scrambling to find 3 billion rand for the cash-strapped broadcaster. Mahlaku Komane, SABC News, Johannesburg.
A toddler missing since Easter Monday has been killed and cannibalized outside Port St. John's in the Eastern Cape. The child's body parts were found in a former prisoner's home. The 30-year-old suspect was released after he served 7 years for a previous murder. He's in custody now and will appear in the Port St. John's Magistrates Court today on that murder charge.
It is the first of its kind. It never happened here before. We are very surprised. We want the government to help us and send some psychologists and social workers to come and assist us because our children here are addicted to drugs.
Hey, I feel very, very, very bad. My heart is so, I can't sleep for this thing. I can't sleep for this thing, this child doing for this child. Hey, I can't sleep, people.
Back to our theme for today. Of course, we've been dealing with cross-border crimes. Now, the African National Congress Youth League in the far north region of KwaZulu-Natal, they say they want the government to build a huge wall along the Mozambican border to prevent criminals from stealing cars and stock. The Youth League says criminals just cut through the wire fence separating the two countries and get away. Cross-border crime is a major issue. In 2009 and 10, the South African Police Service arrested more than 700 people in connection with stolen vehicles, illegal firearms and drugs along the border. The police seized 87 tons of dacha along the border last year alone. However, the retired University of Pretoria professor Michael Howe notes that the number of crimes committed by criminals within South Africa is much more serious than what we think. Now, Professor Howe joins us from our Pretoria studio. Very good morning to you, Prof. Thank you for being with us.
Yes, good morning. Thank you.
Prof, just give us an idea. How serious is the problem of illegal migrants and the impact thereof on cross-border crime here in South Africa?
Well, I think it started becoming a bit more complicated than in the past because South Africans are often found to be part of foreign syndicates, and it therefore operates both ways. And with the South African organized crime assistance, it facilitates certain crimes such as, for instance, vehicle hijacking and the assistance in getting this over the border. And this and stock theft is of course one of the major issues, especially in KZN at the moment. But the spectrum really is very wide. It covers anything from counterfeit goods, cigarette smuggling, and even human trafficking. I think there's virtually no crime that we don't find some foreign involvement, especially in the more serious crimes and the more lucrative ones. But we should not forget the fact that if crime in South Africa is more effectively combated, it will also assist in combating cross-border crime. And although there is a serious problem with border control, I think that that alone is not the solution. There are many other problems and issues we will have to look at before we can really address this problem properly.
Of course, we think of cross-border crime as only happening in border communities, but that's not the case, is it, Professor? A lot of these crimes are committed in our urban and cities for that matter, isn't it so? And the numbers are much higher than we think. Is that a concern?
Certainly, I think the term cross-border crime in the past used to be associated with the crimes that are committed in the vicinity of the border, such as stock theft and illegal grazing and so forth. But many of the so-called cross-border crimes are committed in areas where the loot is bigger. I mean, if they loot a jeweler, a major gain for them, and this is then smuggled over the border and often from there even modified and returned to this country. So yes, I think this is part of the problem, and one cannot separate illegal migration from cross-border crime. This doesn't mean that only illegal migrants are involved in cross-border crime, but the problem is if there's no record of them, it makes it much more difficult for the police to actually trace them.
How many of these illegal migrants do we have in our prisons in South Africa? Do we have a number?
We only have a number for the number of foreigners, and that varies in the vicinity of around between 7,000 and 8,000 at any given time. But this, of course, includes foreigners that are in the country legally. And the estimate of illegal migrants, it varies. The official estimate is just over 1 million, but in some estimates it could be as high as 3 million. So nobody really knows. I don't think there's any country in the world that can give one an exact figure on that count.
What would a rough estimate then be on the cost to the South African economy of this?
Well, I think first of all, there's of course the direct cost of crime to business, insurance companies, and then of course secondly, stock theft has a major impact on farmers, especially those in the border areas. There's also the health dimension, because veterinary services are also involved in this type of problem. So it actually cuts across the whole spectrum of economic activities. And then, of course, many of the foreigners who are actually hired illegally in the country, they don't pay tax, and they are a strain on the infrastructure. So I think there's really, although one cannot put any figure to this, if one looks at some of the amounts involved in things like the net worth of drugs, that are actually seized by the police and the military, and illegal cigarette smuggling, of course, it's clear that this must run into millions, if not billions.
Now, Prof, it doesn't also help if this plays out in our communities as xenophobia, and we see xenophobia attacks, and we even see politicians politicizing xenophobia. What do you see as a lasting solution for us going forward, or how should we deal with this issue in the next decade?
Well, firstly, I think many countries in the world are responding to the new influx of immigrants and refugees. And of course, we also have this problem in South Africa that more than 90% of refugee applications are actually fraudulent. In other words, it is eventually proved that they aren't actual refugees. So first of all, the system will have to be revised, and they are busy with that. And then there's going to be this creation, soon establishment of the Border Management Agency, which is going to be an independent agency, and they are going to work within 10 kilometers from the border. But at the same time, we have just recently heard that they are going to reduce the number of SANDF staff or personnel on the border. So one is getting mixed messages about this, but I think also the other main issue that we'll have to address is corruption. Because it's not only the border line, but also at the border posts. And if we don't address that, then certainly all the other efforts aren't going to be worth much.
Prof, thank you very much for joining us today. That's retired University of Pretoria Professor Michael Howie talking about cross-border crime and the C word. Yes, the C word seems to be central to all of the problems we're having with cross-border crime and even crime of that nature in our inner cities. The big C word, yes, corruption. Corruption at our border posts is something that we have to come to terms with. We're going to take a short commercial break. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News.
Water-wise, water is an essential need. The scarcity of it could lead to loss of many lives, including livestock, plants, and much more. It requires us to use it sparingly and responsibly in times of need, failing which our taps and sanitation will not function. For more on water and weather issues, stay tuned to News Today, every Friday at 4:45 Central African Time. SABC News, making you water-wise.
Welcome back. You're with Newsroom and SABC News. South African organisations reported a considerably higher frequency in the incidence of economic crime in comparison to their African and global peers. More than 2 in 3 organisations, 69%, have indicated that they've been the victim to economic crime in the last 24 months. Now, this is according to PwC's biennial Global Economic Crime Survey. Within South Africa, the opening up of the borders post-apartheid resulted in a massive increase in transnational organised crime. That's a fact. Globalisation has often been cited as the other major cause of increased transnational organised crime. Now, to talk about transnational crime here in South Africa, we're joined in our Cape Town studio by a consultant on financial and economic crime from Informed Solutions to Economic Crime in Africa, ISECA, Charles Goradema. Very good morning to you, Charles. Thanks for being with us here on Newsroom.
Morning, Eben.
Charles, just for those that don't know, tell us what is transnational economic crime and to what extent do we see that crime firstly in South Africa and then on the rest of the African continent?
Yeah, perhaps the starting point is to define what economic crime is. But basically, it is criminal activity that is motivated by material benefits. It is premeditated, it is planned, it is committed by organized people. It is transnational to the extent that it cuts across borders in the way, in the impact that it has. It may be planned in one country but committed in another or in other countries. And in terms of the movement of the proceeds of such crime, they certainly would tend to be also transnational in that they move across borders fairly rapidly. So in essence, that is what transnational economic crime is about.
I want to ask you about, to what extent, I want to talk about South Africa quickly, to what extent has globalization and then the dawn of democracy 20-odd years ago, to what extent has it aided this kind of crime, if one can call it that?
Yeah, well, the one characteristic about globalization which connects it to crime is that it facilitates the easier movement of people, of capital, of commodities and of ideas across a broad range of countries. So in the same way that globalization has assisted rapid economic growth and interconnectivity between economies and between different countries, it has also made it easier for global or international criminals to find their way into South Africa or to operate from South Africa.
We hear about corruption being always mentioned when we talk about how these syndicates or how these criminals operate. Has South Africa become an international hub for organized crime, organized criminals, and cross-border or transnational crime for that matter?
Yeah, it is always tempting to ascribe to that description, but I think it's a bit of an exaggeration. It is not really that South Africa has become a hub, but what has in fact happened is that the significance of South Africa as a hub for transshipment of all sorts of commodities has been exploited by global criminals to also locate themselves here and to conduct their business from and through and to South Africa. I think it always helps to put this into historical perspective. We have what one could call 3 distinct phases which marked the transition of South Africa into the web of transnational crime. The 70s, which were characterized by shortages of just ordinary goods that you and I would sort of depend on, started the whole rot in the sense that the shortages created a vacuum into which transnational criminals could move in to supply all sorts of commodities. The end of the Cold War, when we had glasnost and perestroika in Europe, Eastern Europe, and that brought to South Africa, or that freed up a whole new range of players, some of whom found their way to South Africa from Eastern Europe. Now we have the Radovan Krejcers, we have the late Yuri, the Russian, and people like that, who came to South Africa and started supplying all sorts of commodities, including, I mean, the rapid growth of the sex industry and other phenomena which had been unknown. Then that was followed by the globalization now, sort of post 2000, this millennium, when what had happened pre-2000 really started to manifest itself in an even more radical way. So we have really three phases. So one should not blame just globalization, but in fact that globalization built on and added to an impetus which had already taken shape as a result of other developments.
Which are the most lucrative crimes, or the most popular ones, you can call them, that we see happening on our shores at the moment?
Now, I think if you just turn to the PwC survey that you referred to earlier on, I think the most emphasis is placed on fraud, and that gives us a window into sort of the biggest contributor. I would say fraud, especially fraud which is facilitated by the use of computers, the cybercrime, has really overtaken quite a few other crimes in terms of prominence and contribution to proceeds of crime. But in addition to that, you had other pre-existing forms of economic crime, like drug trafficking, the trafficking of other commodities. I think a previous speaker referred to cigarette smuggling. That's a big contributor, of course.
Yeah.
There are other commodities, of course, like motor vehicles, which are trafficked from South Africa rather than to South Africa, from South Africa to other countries in the neighborhood. Then we have other activities as well, including corporate criminality, which is not so much given prominence today, and that's largely because the legislation that governs it tends to be a bit vague and ambivalent.
I want to, you of course are a consultant that works on solving or work on solutions to economic crime. What are the quick fix solutions that we can look at as a nation in dealing with some of these high profile crimes?
In my view, and I think it's a view that's shared by many of my colleagues, improving the quality and quantity of information that is available to us on what is happening, who is behind the most harmful forms of economic crime, would certainly go a long way to assist us to design solutions to it. But some of the developments or innovations that we have recommended over the years have begun to already be adopted through various strategies in South Africa. But I think what still needs to happen is perhaps the drafting of a comprehensive assessment of the threat from transnational economic crime, which is then reviewed periodically on an annual basis, or perhaps even more frequently, with inputs from a range of stakeholders to whom some of these crimes are visible, or from whom such information could be expected.
Charles, thank you very much for that contribution. It's very interesting, the kind of stuff that you're telling me now. Some of it I was not aware of. Thank you very much. That's Charles Goradema. He is a consultant on financial and economic crime from Informed Solutions to Economic Crimes in Africa. They call themselves ISECA, and they deal with the issue, of course, here in South Africa. We're having issues, but we are not alone. These issues face the entire world. Technology is changing the world, and of course, the way that people are moving is changing the world. As you heard, globalization. Globalization, of course, we also changed post-democracy, 1994, changed the game for us in South Africa as well. So we all need to be aware of, well, how the world is working right now. We're going to take a short break. Of course, we had some fantastic football last night, both local and abroad. Kendall Mahamati will be with you after this short break.
The fossil hominid site at Sterkfontein Caves, known as Cradle of Humankind, were declared a World Heritage Site on the 2nd of December 1999. The Cradle of Humankind covers an area of over 47,000 hectares of privately owned land northwest of Johannesburg. Most of the site is on dolomite, a rock type which is slightly soluble in water. There are currently over 200 caves on the site and 13 fossil sites. We know that Australopithecus africanus were present in the cradle from about 2 to 4 million years ago. It is generally known that hominids are close relatives of human ancestors.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom. My name is Kendall Makamati, and definitely is time to bring you the sporting news bulletin. Now, Cape Town City consolidated their position at the top of the table with a 1-1 draw against Bidvest Wits at the Cape Town Stadium last night. The citizens looked in danger of being leapfrogged by the Clever Boys, who held the lead after an early penalty by Pagamani Masham. But a goal by Tsepo Kumere ensured that the spoils were shared. The Cape side stayed top of the table on 46 points from 24 matches, while Wits moved into second spot with 45 points.
And Cape Town City are back in the game.
Now, Kaizer Chiefs are placed on third on 45 points with an inferior goal difference to Wits, while Mamelodi Sundowns are closing the gap on 44 points from 22 matches after claiming a third successive win after Hlompo Kekana's late goal saw them defeat SuperSport United 1-0. Polokwane City beat Platinum Stars 1-0 at home thanks to a goal from Tapelo Tsi. It was Rise and Shine's first league win of 2017 and Dikwena's third successive loss in the top flight. Now, the top seeds were tested on day 5 of the Monte Carlo Masters Tennis Tournament. However, all progressed to the third round relatively unscathed. Let's have a look. World number 1 Andy Murray of Britain has recovered from an elbow injury and saw Gilles Muller of Luxembourg 7-5 and 7-5. Murray has got designs on making it to his first Monte Carlo final. Third seed Stanislav Wawrinka of Switzerland is also through to the third round, but he needed 3 sets against the Czech Republic's Yuri Vesely, winning 6-2, 4-6 and 6-2. Fifth seed Marin Cilic of Croatia was too strong for France's Jeremy Chardy, brushing aside the wild card 6-3 and 6-love to set up a meeting against Czech 9th seed Thomas Berdych. However, 9-time Monte Carlo champion Rafael Nadal of Spain was given an awful scare in his first clay court match of the season. The 4th seed needed 3 sets to beat Kyle Edmund of Great Britain 6-love, 5-7 and 6-3.
The 9-time champion here in Monte Carlo gets over the first hurdle in 2017.
And also yesterday, tennis superstar Serena Williams revealed to the world that she's pregnant and expecting to deliver her first baby this autumn. The confirmation by publicist Kelly Bush Novak came in a statement hours after the 35-year-old athlete had posted a photo of herself in a bathing suit on Snapchat with the caption, 20 weeks. Williams, who'll return to the number 1 ranking in the world next week, deleted the photo shortly after it appeared, and she waited more than 6 hours to make any public comment, stoking furious speculation about whether she was really expecting. Now, the 4th edition of the Brutal Fruit Netball Premier League will start later this month, and participating teams will have added incentives to play for. The brand's commitment to changing the perception of women's sport and elevating the standard of netball in the country has seen the sport reach greater heights in recent years.
The tournament is the sport's flagship event in South Africa and has seen netball grow in the recent years. The fact that the tournament is now in its 4th year is an indication that this slowly but surely becoming a fully professional netball league. And the sponsors deserve credit for their continuous support of women's sport.
We've seen how they've gone all out to make sure that they use this opportunity to support women's sport, because remember, they also said they were taking this opportunity because it was giving them the opportunity to, for the first time, support women's sport.
Brutal Fruit, in partnership with Netball South Africa, has also introduced the Brutal Fruit Study Program.
From a women's sport perspective, we need to become professional. And the way to become professional is to start somewhere. And to have a semi-professional league gives girls opportunities to dream big and to be inspired to become national and international icons.
And the players are grateful for the opportunities they are afforded.
The things NSA have done for us, it's beyond gratitude, and all the sponsors coming in and just believing in the players, it's just phenomenal to see, and we're really grateful from a player's side that we are allowed this opportunity at this day and age.
10 teams will compete in the event, and the winner of this year's Premier League will travel to New Zealand, where they will take part in the New Zealand Netball League. Prudence Makubalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Promises to another humdinger of a season. Now, South African Geordie Smith has won the Rip Curl Pro Bells Beach in Australia, the 3rd stop on this year's World Surf League tour. Smith beat Brazil's Caio Ibelli in a classic final at the longest-running professional surf event in the world. Smith secured his 6th championship tour win with his best performance in the event. He started with 2 9-point rides for the lead. Ibelli answered back with a near-perfect 9.63 out of a possible 10, but he couldn't match that score, and Smith closed with another high-scoring wave to take the title for the first time with a total of 18.90. It's his first win at this event and lifts him to number 2 on the standings behind Hawaii's John Florence. Florence finished 3rd after being beaten by Ibelli in the semi-finals. Now, Cricket South Africa has named the ICC Champions Trophy squad with one surprise inclusion in the 15-man team. Keshav Maharaj earned his maiden one-day international call-up after an impressive Test debut season.
Maharaj edged out wrist spinner Tabrias Shamsi. His inclusion comes as a surprise. The 26-year-old did not feature in the recent ODI series in New Zealand, while Shamsi was part of the squad. However, he excelled in the Test series. The left-arm spinner was the leading wicket-taker with 15 in 3 tests against New Zealand. It included figures of 8 for 87 in Wellington. He does not only come in as a support for Imran Tahir, but adds some depth to the lower batting order.
Looking at the way so many one-day games are going now, on average teams are winning games 260 for 7 or 280 for 8. You need those 7, 8, 9 contributions with the bat. So that was a big factor in deciding to go with Keshav, because he does offer you a bit more batting depth than a guy like Shamsi would offer you, then a bit more batting depth than a guy than Pangisa would offer you. And that was the main reason for going with it. He does bring a lot of control. He's done fantastically well in the test circuit thus far.
Captain AB de Villiers' fitness will be closely monitored. He has been plagued by an acute flare-up of his back injury. De Villiers has missed 2 of the 5 Indian Premier League games that his franchise has played so far. At the moment, it's unclear whether he'll be replaced should he not recover in time for next month's tournament.
We haven't thought too much about that as yet. We're assuming all 15 of those squad members will be fit. But should one of them not be fit, there is a spare batsman in the group as it is, which I'm sure that guy will be the guy that will start. And then you've got options outside of the squad. There's guys like Kazondo who's had a good domestic season. There's guys like Tema Bavuma who's got 100 in his first ODI. There's Aiden Markram who's had a fantastic domestic season.
Meanwhile, Dale Steyn was included in the South African A squad for the 34-day matches against the England Lions. The fast bowler remains on track to recover from his shoulder operation.
The plan at the moment is to get him bowling full out or flat out in about a month's time, and to make him eligible for selection in 2 out of the 3 4-day games for the SAA team in the UK.
The Proteas will play 3 ODIs leading into the Champions Trophy tournament. Lebang Dube, SABC News, Johannesburg.
And the next hour will bring you some of the action that happened out in the UEFA Champions League last night, as well as a bit of boxing news from right here in South Africa. With time to take a short breather, we'll be back top of the hour with more news and more analysis. You're watching Newsroom.
A meteorite hit the Earth 2 million years ago, creating an enormous impact of crater, about 10 kilometers in diameter, near Vredefort in the Free State, 100 kilometers southwest of Johannesburg, now known as the Vredefort Dome, a South African World Heritage Site. The meteorite is said to have been larger than Table Mountain and caused a 1,000 megaton blast of energy. The impact would have heated about 70 cubic kilometers of rock and have increased the Earth's oxygen levels to a degree that made the development of multicellular life possible. The world has about 130 crater structures of possible impact origin. The Vredefort Dome is the largest in the world, followed by Sudbury Crater in Canada and the Chicxulub Crater in Mexico. Did you know the big hole digging started in 1871 and ended on the 14th August 1914? The hole produced 2,722 kgs of diamonds. However, one diamond as huge as 490 carat of stone found in the open prior 1868 gave them the interest to dig. Extracted from 22.5 million tons of soil. Today, the hole sits at a breathtaking 214 meters deep. Kimberley Big Hole attracts tourists from all over the world, taking a vintage tram past the city, then cycling around the Big Hole. Did you know that Vilakazi Street is the only street in the world to have housed 2 Nobel Prize winners? Vilakazi Street in Orlando West, Soweto, southwest of Johannesburg in the Republic of South Africa, has been home to Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Nelson Mandela's house was a modest family house from 1946 and still maintains those features. Archbishop Desmond Tutu still owns his house in Vilakazi Street since 1975 and often goes to stay there when visiting Johannesburg. Because of its popularity, the street has an influx of tourists. Restaurants with local cuisine have mushroomed around it, creating job opportunities for the locals and improving the lifestyle in the area. Orlando West High School in Vilakazi Street is known for its creative role during the famous 1976 uprising.
It's 1100 hours Central Africa time here on the Newsroom, Jumbo Africa. I'm Elvis Preslin.
And I'm Kendall Makhamat.
Now, we'll be with you until 12 o'clock today. Now, Kendall, today we're focusing on cross-border crimes, and we had a lot of reaction to that.
100%. It's actually been very interesting to see what our viewers are tweeting us the entire day to tell us what they think about what's happening with the cross-border crimes. And really, we were wanting to find out from all of our viewers. We're asking you, if you've just joined us, how should South Africa be dealing with the escalating cross-border crimes?
So let's take a look at what you have to say in relation to the question. Katlego says, I'm calling on neighboring countries to work with us here. This is a joint crisis between countries. We can't do this alone. Nobody could have said it better, Katlego.
Yes, and Michael Bigamstole says the SANDF must do its job and stop taking bribes, because at the moment you can literally walk to our country thanks to them.
This one from Barry Martin says, deploy commanders on our borders and bring the border police inland, because they train for dramatic or drastic domestic problems, right?
Yes, and Sipo comes in with there must be a full force on fighting with thugs, because they also don't have mercy. They shoot to kill. Police must not be lenient.
Well, these are your comments coming through. You can keep them coming and we'll read them as we continue on the question of cross-border crimes. But also, Kendall, we're looking at the finance minister who is in Washington. He's in the US today, trying to woo investors back into the country.
Yeah, it's almost like 20 years ago when we first broke into democracy and we're trying to woo investors back into the country. Well, that's why we're asking you at home, will Malusi Gigaba's US tour win over investors?
235 votes in. I tell you, 68% of you are not feeling very confident about the new finance minister. You are saying no, you won't succeed. 32% are saying yes, we will bring back those investors which we've lost.
And Michael Bigamstoller weighs in on this one, says yes, he can and will, because there's always someone willing to invest.
This one from Goog says opposition parties must remember that they are South African first. They should show patriotism. Gigaba will succeed stateside.
Tulani says, I trust the Republic of South Africa, but Gigaba and Zuma's history will punish them and their ally.
This one from the Royal Rebel says, we are such a negative country. We are so unpatriotic. I feel we must give people a chance and be positive in our thinking. The minister is capable. Those are all your comments thus far. Keep them coming. We'll read them as we continue in the final hour. But right now, let's get down to business and take a look at your news headlines. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa come out in support of government's radical economic transformation. The Finance Minister Malusi Gaba is in Washington for a mini-city roadshow of the United States where he hopes to woo investors and meet rating agency Moody's. And here at home, the Hawks have confirmed that the head of the Jesus Dominion International Church, Tim Omotoso, will hand himself over to the police in Port Elizabeth today. Well, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening in the final hour in the sports news.
100%, lots happening and a lot to talk about in the world of football. I don't know who you were supporting last night between Barcelona and Juve, or maybe Dortmund, Monaco?
Barcelona, but it failed terribly. Eh?
No, it was quite sad. It was quite a sad sight for all Barcelona fans, both here at work as well as at home. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
Attempts at intimidation. Now, header! It's one of those games that would have taken a dead ball to break the deadlock.
As the race for the PSL title heats up, Mamelodi Sundowns complete the double over Vuwani rivals SuperSport United, edging them by a single goal to nil.
Is Mendy so progressive, so attacking as a left back and getting the shot away. It's parried out. It's 1-0 to Monaco.
Monaco were in scintillating form once again as they ripped through Dortmund's defence, crushing them 3-1 on the night and 6-3 on aggregate to advance to the UEFA Champions League semi-finals.
Oh, is this his first touch? It is! What an impact! And Valère Germain is the man who has put Monaco into the semi-finals of the Champions League.
It was a big factor in deciding to play, to go with Keshav, because he does offer you a bit more batting depth than a guy like Shams would offer you, then a bit more batting depth than a guy than Pangisa would offer you.
Cricket, South Africa names a strong squad for the ICC Champions Trophy with one surprise inclusion, that of left-arm spinner Keshav Maharaj. Stay with us as Elvis brings the news. I'll be back at 11:35.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour. The Interministerial Committee on Vuwani will today outline the way forward on the situation in the volatile Vuwani area. Police Minister Fikile Mbalula and Cooperative Governance Minister Des van Rooyen are expected to attend the briefing in Polokwane. Now, this comes after the protest claimed 2 lives. The 2 died when their car hit a steel pipe used to barricade a road. Scores of vehicles have been pelted with stones since early this week.
This is where Glenn Chauke and Isaiah Makamu from Majozi village met their untimely deaths. Their vehicle hit the steel pipe placed on the road. It caught fire and killed them instantly. A 3rd occupant survived, but remains in a critical condition. The steel pipe was allegedly pushed on the road by protesting residents. Their families are devastated.
This is a horrible death. We are so sad. We are heartily broken. Nothing more that we can say. I'm hurt. And as a family of Makam, we are hurt.
Police have beefed up their teams. This follows escalating reports of cars pelted with stones.
Our deployment in this area is of maximum personnel, and we are satisfied that we are in place. But the only thing is that the community members, if they come across any illegal activities, including this throwing of stones, they must report to us immediately.
Schooling has been disrupted since yesterday. Over 27,000 pupils are affected. Residents of Vuwani and surrounding areas are fighting a demarcation battle. They are resisting incorporation into the new municipality with Malamulele.
Now, for the latest on the situation in Vuwani, we go live to our SABC reporter, Michael Maringa. Mike, a very good morning to you and welcome. Can you sketch us a picture as to what is happening in Vuwani? Because we heard about tensions that still might be high there.
Good afternoon, Elvis. Yes, it's indeed correct that tensions still high here in Vuwani. We are expecting the Minister of Police, Fikile Mbalula, and Minister of Cocta, Des van Rooyen, to come and meet with stakeholders as they have indicated here. But currently, as we speak, Vuwani is very calm. Public transport has been restored. In the past 2 days, taxis buses and any other vehicles were not moving on this road. You'll remember that we reported a story that vehicles were pelted with stones when they passed the Feyeboom area. But since the Tuesday incident where Glenn Chauke and Isaiah Makamu met their untimely death in one of the barricaded roads, police have beefed up their operation. We've got police vans in each and every corner of this area. So currently, they are preparing for their Minister Fikile Mbalula, to come. We have seen them busy on the roads. So each and every corner is manned by SAPS. It doesn't look like anything might happen today. And also the people who have been protesting in the past few days are not here. It's a shutdown. And as I speak to you now, I'm in one of the most busiest shopping complexes in Vuwani. It is very quiet. It's only police who are here to guard the property. Elvis.
Have lost their lives in that car accident you mentioned there, Mike, allegedly caused by the barricades in the roads. Has there been any arrest or any follow-ups in terms of that incident?
We spoke to the spokesperson of police yesterday, Colonel Mwasungwepe, who indicated that they are investigating the matter because at this stage they don't have any witness. What we have observed when we were at the scene yesterday is that there was a very big steel pipe that was on the roadside. It was pushed into the road and it blockaded traffic. Chauke and Makamu, together with the third occupant who is battling for his life in Polokwane, were traveling on that road when they hit that steel pipe. So at this stage, it is difficult for them to make any arrest because they haven't got any witness. It's a matter that happened in the evening. So police are saying that they were waiting for forensic investigators to come and check at the scene to see if whether there's anything that they can salvage so that they can go ahead with their investigations. And also the families of the two deceased were there with us. They were heartbroken. It's something that they were not anticipating. And looking at Makami, was only 31 years old. So you can imagine what they are going through, Elvis.
Now, it seems like the picture that you're painting for us there at the back, we can see some of the visuals, is very quiet in that shopping center. What about education in the area? Has that been impacted by the protesting people of Vuwani?
It is indeed impacted. Remember, we are talking about 28,000 learners in this area alone. And we have been reliably informed, though it's not confirmed, that some of these learners who are eager to learn moved into the neighboring villages who are not part of the strike. They have been attending school there for the past 2 days. But we are told that this morning a group of people went into those schools to remove them forcefully. So it's a very tense situation because you can see that learners do want to go back to school. Hence, they took an effort to go to neighboring villages that are not protesting. But because there is a shutdown that was announced and the leaders of the shutdown feel that if they go to another school, it will defeat the purpose. So unfortunately, they had to be removed. They are now sitting at home. Few of them are lingering around, but majority are staying indoors. So the Department of Education also indicated that they are worried about this ongoing situation because last year they went through a similar situation where schools were banned. Now, what will happen if the protest drags for long? Because it will then be their responsibility again to set up camps and make sure that there are catch-up programs coming from this side, Elvis.
Now, the pro-Mercado demarcation task team has distanced itself from the incidents of violence in Vuwani. So the question then begs is, who are the protesters?
Look, protesters are community members who from time to time attend the meetings that are called by pro-Mercado. The reason why they are distancing themselves is because after the demarcation board rejected their proposal to be moved back to Mercado, the traditional leaders who are also in the forefront indicated that they are cutting their ties, their relationship with government. So what is happening now is that people from their various communities are taking it upon themselves to blockade the roads, to pelt the vehicles with stones. I can say, Elvis, maybe the right word will be to say that they are on autopilot because pro-Mercado is no longer in charge. They are no longer in control of the masses who are running amok, who are causing havoc. Remember, the SABC car was smashed in the very same area where in the past the pro-Mercado people were there to protect us. But unfortunately, because the situation has deteriorated to this level, there is no one to look after us. We are now hoping that from time to time we'll be having police on our backs to at least watch us and to ensure that we are safe.
Now, Mike, last year we saw almost 30 schools being burned down to the ground. Are we likely to see this in terms of the tensions, and what are you hearing from the community?
It's unlikely that we might experience a similar situation where schools are guarded down. And even as I speak to you now, police vehicles are guarding other government institutions, but schools are left alone. It looks like this is the message that was communicated to community members to say, even though we are in a shutdown, we must never ban schools again, because it's only one of those 29 schools that were damaged that has been rebuilt, and it was not by government, it was by private sector who came and said they need to assist in the situation. So banning more school will be to their detriment, because the Department of Education in the province has got a backlog of more than 1,000 schools that they still need to build and refurbish. The only thing that they provided here were mobile classrooms. So it looks like they have adhered to that call to leave schools alone and not ban anything. But what they are trying to do now is to blockade the route so that traffic does not move at all. They want everything to come to a standstill so that they can get the positive feedback that they've been fighting for the past few months.
Now, Mike, the minister is there this morning. What can we expect to come out of that?
Look, the minister is starting in Polokwane. It's actually two ministers, Minister of Cocta and Minister of Police. They are part of the interministerial committee that has been in Vuwani for the past few months when this area was very or highly volatile. Today, what is expected of them is that they will start at some school at Feyeboom called the Chirunzanani. That's where they are going to have their first meeting. But it is not clear at this stage as to who is going to be part of that meeting, because the pro-Mercado guys have indicated that they were never invited to such a meeting, so they will not be attending. But from Chirunzanani, he will go to the police station to get a briefing of what's happening. And they are also likely to at least fly around to check what is happening on the ground. That's what we got so far. And also that immediately after the meetings that he's going to have, he will still brief us as the media about what he has seen here, what he has observed, and what could be the way forward for people of Vuwani and surrounding area. Elvis.
Mike Maringa, thank you so much for that report coming to us from Vuwani. We expect a lot more to come of that. We'll keep you updated on that story as we progress. Meanwhile, disgruntled members of the Lomshio Traditional Authority are today marching on the offices of the Mpumalanga Premier, David Mabuza. Now, this follows a 21-year unresolved land claims dispute. The Mekemeke community lodged a claim in 1996 for land they believe was stolen from them during colonialism as well as apartheid. But to this day, they remain in limbo. They allege that there's widespread fraud and corruption in the land restitution process, with prices for earmarked land being inflated. Our SABC reporter, Sipepile Kunene, is at the march, and we go now live to her, where she is with a guest, Jacob Mnisi. He's a member of the Traditional Council. A very good morning to you, CP. What is the latest on the march that started this morning there?
At the moment, we are coming to you live from the Mpumalanga legislature, where the people from the Lomshio Tribal Authority decided to march to the Premier's offices to deliver a memorandum of grievances, whereby they are complaining that they submitted a land claim in 1996 for them to get their land back. The land goes as far as Matamo, they go as far as Hector-Spruit, Nelspruit is in there, Sudwala. They also go as far as Hector-Spruit. Now, they have marched here to deliver a memorandum of grievances where they are describing the fact that other people have submitted claims after they had submitted claims, but they have gotten their land back, while for their side, they have not got anything in terms of the land. So they are suspecting corruption in the process. Now they are delivering a memorandum of grievances on those grounds. But we will briefly talk to Jacob Mnisi, who is a member of the Tribal Council at Lomshio Tribal Authority. He'll be giving us facts about what's going on here and a bit of background on the issue that we are on about. Jacob, now briefly tell us why you are here. Why did you take this step to come here today?
Yeah, actually, Chief Tikodele Dlamini is not a violent person. He does not believe in violence. That is why he actually has arranged this peaceful march to remind the government so that they can speedily resolve the issue of a land claim, because he knows that he put a claim before everyone, and then there are also a lot of people that got a land under his claim, and also other land were taken into rural, and other land were bought by government. They took it under Department of Land Affairs, and then they took those land into leases and all those things. So there was a lot of corruption that happened during the process. Not even a single land was delivered to Chief. We know what happened in Cap Maiden. People wanted to try to invade land forcefully, but Chief managed to stop them and arrange these peaceful marches so that people, they don't take land into or law into their own hands.
Okay, now we understand that the land he's claiming attracts tourists. There's farming there, there's mining. It has a lot of economic activities going on. Does he plan, when he has it back, to have that continuing?
Yes, he's got all that under control. He's got all those plans in place to work also with those farmers to transfer skills to the young generation, and also to take part in the mining activities. Currently, nothing is happening. Those mines are being mined. They left some of the land unrehabilitated and unusable in future and all those things. So those programs are in place. He's got all those under control.
So today here you're submitting a memorandum. What are you expecting to gain out of the memorandum? It's been a long time you placed the claim and nothing has happened. What do you want to happen today?
Actually, government to take this thing very serious. We know that our government is taking it very serious. It's just that government employees, they are the main problem, because you can go there, make appointments, we won't get nothing in return. So we are expecting government to take this thing very serious and to make sure that they are employees, because it's been 21 years now. They are coming to work every day, going back home. By the end of the month, they get paid, but nothing happens.
So what will you do if you guys are not getting the land back? What results are we going to see? What repercussions will the government experience if you guys don't get your land back?
We will continue with those peaceful march, because this is a democratic country, and we believe that our government will take this very serious. And I'm sure we'll continue to do that. I don't know, I'm sure until when.
Okay, thank you. That was Jacob Mnisi, who is a member of the Tribal Council of the Lomshio Tribal Authority. We know that the minister, Gugile Nkwinti, pronounced that they have already appointed the University of KwaZulu-Natal to do a study on this land claim so that they establish how far it goes and how legitimate it is for the Lomshio Tribal Authority to have his claim on the land. I'm Spepile Gunene at the Mpumalanga Government Complex.
That's our reporter, Sipapile Kunene, joining us now. Radical economic transformation is non-negotiable. That's according to the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa. The Deputy President says to transform the economy, government must increase skills, get black professionals to work with government, create more black industrialists, and develop SMEs.
We used the term when we said government's program of radical economic transformation is about placing the economy on a quantitatively different path that ensures more rapid, sustainable growth, higher investment, increased employment, reduced inequality, and the deracialization of our economy. That's when the term started seeing the light of day. And of course, we've packed it with a whole number of things, and that term still needs further definition. And I would say those who are dismissing this term, they should sit down, listen, smell the coffee. Because this may be the time for you to smell the coffee and realize that the economic transformation of our country cannot be it's non-negotiable. It has to happen, and it is going to happen. Whether people like it or not, the economy has to be transformed, and it will be transformed.
Meanwhile, the Finance Minister, Malusi Gigaba, is in Washington for a multi-city roadshow of the United States. Now, he plans to reassure investors, and work to prevent South Africa from suffering a third downgrade from Moody's. As you know, we have 2 downgrades already. Gigaba will also participate in the annual spring meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank.
His visit to the United States comes as the world economy begins to rebound. The IMF this week raising projections for world growth.
Things are really looking up at the moment. We've seen a string of good economic news since the middle of 2016, and we definitely see some momentum. We expected growth to rise in 2016, but we're raising our forecast even beyond what it was a couple of months ago to 3.5% this year, 3.6% next year.
Further positive news is that more robust demand has helped commodity prices recover from their troughs in 2016, while financial markets are buoyed by continued policy support in China and fiscal expansion in the United States. But risks remain.
Policymakers really need to raise their game in several respects. The open world trading system has promoted growth over decades, especially in emerging markets, but the gains have been distributed too unequally, as have the costs of adjustment to changing technology and changing trade. Policymakers need to think about policies that will equip workforces for structural transformation, help them adjust to all kinds of dislocations, and remain productive.
At the domestic level, policies are needed to help support the workers of today and also to train the workers of tomorrow. Closing the borders to trade will only worsen the situation. It would not bring jobs back. It would just make more jobs disappear.
With warnings that much of the outlook uncertainty is political.
Gigaba, in his first foray onto the international scene as finance minister, is that South Africa's economic challenges come at a time when the world economy is beginning to rebound after a tepid recovery precipitated by the financial crisis that began in 2007. But despite this positive global sentiment, international investors and policy stakeholders are eager to hear how he plans to stop the downward spiral, perceived or otherwise, and what radical economic transformation will mean for those with deep investment pockets sitting abroad. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.
Well, and that's why, of course, we're putting up the poll for you. We want to find out from you, do you think that the minister, the finance minister, Malusi Gigaba, will be successful in his trip to woo investors back into South Africa? We'll take a look at that poll. There we go. It's on your screen right now. So far, 235 votes in, and 68% of you are saying that Malusi Gigaba's US tour will win over the investors. 32% are saying yes. 68% are saying no. Keep them coming. We'll read also your comments in relation to that. Here back at home, the Hawks have confirmed that the head of the Jesus Dominion International Church, Tim Omotoso, will hand himself over to the police in Port Elizabeth today. The unit has been looking for him since an SABC special assignment expose on allegations of rape of young girls against him. Omotoso, a Nigerian national, has been in hiding since the allegations surfaced. The Hawks have denied bungling the arrest of the renowned prophet. The unit was due to arrest him at an Easter crusade in Bloemfontein last week, but allegedly arrived after he had left. Girls as young as 14 have accused Omotoso of luring them to his Umhlanga home to molest them. He allegedly molested more than 30 young girls on the pretext of rescuing them from drugs. A toddler missing since Easter Monday has been killed and cannibalized outside Port St. John's in the Eastern Cape. The child's body parts were found in a former prisoner's home. The 30-year-old suspect was released after he served 7 years in jail. Let's now see where we are going to next. As you know, that we were talking about that former prisoner, that 30-year-old suspect in Port Elizabeth, in Port St. John's, that he had these the body that was found of the child in his house. Now he's currently in custody and he will appear at the Port St. John's Magistrates Court today on charges of murder. Now we'll take a short break and I'll be right back after that.
Here.
What is environmental health?
In Section 24 of the Constitution, the environmental right has a second part, which is to encourage people to be active citizens and gives us the right to participate in politics and organize and raise awareness so that the environmental right can be guaranteed.
Using coal and wood and paraffin to cook with or to heat their space or to heat water. These are basic fundamentals, and I think if we can address that alone, we will make a huge impact, an environmental impact on the health of our population.
Food that comes into the country, the vigilance at the ports and harbours is being checked at the moment currently with by environmental practitioners who are port officers at those ports. They need to be more stringent in terms of control of what comes into the country.
Join Health Talk every Saturday for all your health news.
Now, recapping on our theme for today on cross-border crimes, the ANC Youth League in the far north region of KwaZulu-Natal wants the government to build a huge wall along the Mozambican border to prevent criminals from stealing their cars. The Youth League says criminals just cut through the wire fence separating the two countries and get away. Cross-border crime is a major issue. In 2009 and 2010, the South African Police Services arrested more than 700 people in connection with stolen vehicles, illegal firearms and drugs along the border. However, retired University of Pretoria Professor Michael Ho notes that the number of crimes committed by criminals within South Africa is far more serious. Earlier, we talked to the professor from our Pretoria studios.
It started becoming a bit more complicated than in the past because South Africans are often found to be part of foreign syndicates, and it therefore operates both ways. And with the South African organized crime assistance, it facilitates certain crimes such as, for instance, vehicle hijacking and the assistance in getting this over the border. This and stock theft is of course one of the major issues, especially in KZN at the moment. But the spectrum really is very wide. It covers anything from counterfeit goods, cigarette smuggling, and even human trafficking. I think there's virtually no crime that we don't find some foreign involvement, especially in the more serious crimes and the more lucrative ones. But we should not forget the fact that if crime in South Africa is more effectively combated, it will also assist in combating cross-border crime. And although there is a serious problem with border control, I think that that alone is not the solution. There are many other problems and issues we will have to look at before we can really address this problem properly.
Of course, we think of cross-border crime as only happening in border communities, but that's not the case, is it, Professor? A lot of these crimes are committed in our urban and cities for that matter, isn't it so? And the numbers are much higher than we think. Is that a concern?
Certainly. I think the term cross-border crime in the past used to be associated with the crimes that are committed in the vicinity of the border, such as stock theft and illegal grazing and so forth. But many of the so-called cross-border crimes are committed in areas where the loot is bigger. I mean, if they loot a jeweler shop which keeps expensive jewellery, that's a major gain for them, and this is then smuggled over the border and often from there even modified and returned to this country. So yes, I think this is part of the problem, and one cannot separate illegal migration from cross-border crime. This doesn't mean that only illegal migrants are involved in cross-border crime, but the problem is if there's no record of them, it makes it much more difficult for the police to actually trace them.
How many of these illegal migrants do we have in our prisons in South Africa? Do we have a number?
We only have a number for the number of foreigners, and that varies in the vicinity of around between 7,000 and 8,000 at any given time. But this, of course, includes foreigners that are in the country legally, and the estimate of illegal migrants, it varies. The official estimate is just over 1 million, but in some estimates it could be as high as 3 million. So nobody really knows. I don't think there's any country in the world that can give one an exact figure on that count.
What would a rough estimate then be on the cost to the South African economy of this?
Well, I think first of all, there's of course the direct cost of crime to business in terms of losses and to the insurance companies, and then of course secondly, stock theft has a major impact on farmers, especially those in the border areas. There's also the health dimension, because veterinary services are also involved in this type of problem. So it actually cuts across the whole spectrum of economic activities. And then, of course, many of the foreigners who are actually hired illegally in the country, they don't pay tax, and they are a strain on the infrastructure. So I think there's really, although one cannot put any figure to this, if one looks at some of the amounts involved in things like the net worth of drugs, that are actually seized by the police and the military, and illegal cigarette smuggling, of course, it's clear that this must run into millions, if not billions.
Now, Prof, it doesn't also help if this plays out in our communities as xenophobia, and we see xenophobia attacks, and we even see politicians politicizing xenophobia. What do you see as a lasting solution for us going forward, or how should we deal with this issue in the next decade?
Well, firstly, I think many countries in the world are responding to the new influx of immigrants and refugees. And of course, we also have this problem in South Africa that more than 90% of refugee applications are actually fraudulent. In other words, it is eventually proved that they aren't actual refugees. So first of all, the system will have to be revised, and they are busy with that. And then there's going to be this soon establishment of the Border Management Agency, which is going to be an independent agency, and they are going to work within 10 kilometers from the border. But at the same time, we have just recently heard that they are going to reduce the number of SANDF staff or personnel on the border. So one is getting mixed messages about this, but I think also the other main issue that we'll have to address is corruption. Because it's not only the border line, but also at the border posts. And if we don't address that, then certainly all the other efforts aren't going to be worth much.
Yes, that was our theme today, focusing on cross-border crimes. You can still participate because we're asking you that question online as to what should we do as South Africa to curb the scourge. But right now, it's time to take a break, and Kendall Makamate is standing by with your sports news.
Elvis, thank you very much. Good morning to you. It is time for the sports, and things are becoming a whole lot more interesting at the top of the Absolute Premiership log, as the top 5 clubs on the standings are giving each other no breathing space whatsoever. SuperSport United remain in 5th position as they lost 1-0 to 4th place Mamelodi Sundowns in Atteridgeville last night. Eric Tinkler's Cape Town City are at the top of the log after their 1-0 draw at home against 2nd placed Bidvest Wits.
Wits travelled to Mother City to face Cape Town City. The Clever Boys were 3rd on the standings before kick-off, and a win would have elevated them to the top of the log. The Gavin Hunt-led troops couldn't have asked for a better start to the match, as they were awarded a penalty after just 4 minutes. Pagamani Mahlambi, the victim of the foul inside the box, stepped up and made it 1-0 to the visitors.
Right foot, tucks it away, and it's the perfect start for Wits.
After the half-hour mark, Judas Musiamedi missed a glorious opportunity after Darren Keats' mistake between the In the second half, Tsepo Kumete couldn't be denied as he headed home Opringoma's free kick to score the equalizer.
There is the flicker, left in the post, equalizer.
With the result, Wits leapfrogged Kaizer Chiefs into 2nd spot. Sundowns took on rivals SuperSport United in yet another Tshwane derby. A week ago, Sundowns humiliated their opponents, beating them 5-0 at Loftus Versfeld. Vuwani seems to have found his magic touch this season as he takes on players at will. But the best chance of the match fell to Clayton Daniels, who forced a fine save from Dennis Onyango. And in the second half, Hlompo Kekana headed home Teko Modise's free kick.
Now, it's one of those games that would have taken a dead ball to break the deadlock. And it's Mamelodi Sundowns.
The match finished 1-0 to Sundowns, who are still 2 points behind log leaders Cape Town City, but with 2 matches in hand. Polokwane City are enjoying their stay in the Absa Premiership. Unlike previous seasons, the club from the Limpopo province is not concerned about relegation. City played host to Platinum Stars last night, and defender Tapelo Tilo's goal was the difference between the two clubs. The Rise and Shine are 6th on the log, while Stars remain 11th. Mtutuzi Ndlovu, SABC News.
Now, with just over a month left to the end of the season, here's a look at exactly how the log looks right now. We have a look-see at the top of the table, the ups and downs that have been happening. Cape Town City on 46 points. They're sitting pretty at the top. Bidvest Wits, they've been trading places with Cape Town City for almost the entire season. 2nd on 45 points, along with Kaizer Chiefs, who've moved downwards from last night's draw that City and Wits had, sitting on 45 points as well. Mamelodi Sundowns, games in hand, not points in hand, and they've realized that, and that's probably why they've cracked their game and jacked up their socks. They're sitting on 4th position right now after playing 22 matches. SuperSport United, 37. You'll notice that just 4 points in it between these 2 points in it rather between these top 4 teams. Polokwane City moving upwards into 6th position. Golden Arrows and Maritzburg United slipping downwards a little closer to the bottom half of the table. Talking of which, you'll notice no movements whatsoever here, but very interesting setup we've got here. You know, if you look all the way through to the bottom of the log, Baroka FC, between Baroka FC and Ajax Cape Town, just 5 points in it. Just 5 points in it for any one of these teams to actually get into the drop zone, including Orlando Pirates, who would have been trying to knock on that top 8 door. Just have a look, see what's happening. Orlando Pirates, Ajax Cape Town, Platinum Stars, Chipper United, and Bloem Celtic, as well as Free State Stars, literally just sitting just above the drop zone. Highlands Park and Baroka FC, they've been there for the longest time are cellar dwellers. They might as well be called. Now, in the UEFA Champions League, Barcelona fired blanks as merciless Juventus put on a defensive masterclass, holding them to a 0-0 draw at the Camp Nou, and a 3-0 victory on aggregate, effectively dumping the Catalan giants out of the competition. All this as Monaco in scintillating form once again, ripping through Dortmund's defence, crushing them 3-1 on the night and 6-3 on aggregate to advance to the UEFA Champions League semi-finals for the first time since 2004. Monaco and Juventus join Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid for Friday's last four draw.
The League One side Monaco had a 3-2 first leg advantage heading into the second leg at the Stade Louis II, where kickoff was pushed back by 5 minutes after Dortmund's team bus was delayed. UEFA blamed heavy traffic for the hold-up, but on their official Twitter account, Dortmund said they had been delayed in leaving their hotel by police for around 20 minutes without justification. Dortmund bow out after the bomb attack on the team's bus last week that forced the first leg to be postponed by a day. Monaco took the lead when Kylian Mbappe scored from a rebound from goalkeeper Roman Buki, who failed to hold on to Benjamin Mendy's powerful shot.
The wonder kid gets the goal.
That strike meant 18-year-old Mbappe, who netted twice in the first leg, became the youngest player ever to score 5 goals in the Champions League. Then Monaco's captain Falcao, making his 50th appearance in UEFA, scored his 45th goal.
Falcao makes it 2-0 on the night for Monaco.
Dortmund pulled one back through Marco Reus just after the break, but substitute Valery German scored 22 seconds after coming off the bench for the hosts to secure their spot in the last four.
And what a story this will be! He's been at Monaco.
Trailing 3-0 from the first leg, Barcelona raided the Juventus goalmouth but failed to repeat their last 16 heroics when they overturned a first leg 4-0 deficit to beat Paris Saint-Germain. Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez and Neymar all had good opportunities on a night Barca were restricted to just one shot on target. The final whistle was celebrated wildly by the champions of Italy, who have not conceded a goal from open play in this season's Champions League. Barca will have little time to mourn their Champions League exit as they visit arch-rivals Real Madrid on Sunday in a potential title-deciding El Clasico. Sfeso Ramara, SABC News.
You heard it in the package that they've not conceded a single goal in open play. This is Juventus. They've actually conceded only 2 goals since the start of the competition this season. Phenomenal stuff by Massimiliano Allegri and his side. Now, South African welterweight champion Sean Nurse will defend his title when he fights unbeaten Thulani Mbenge at the Empress Palace this coming Sunday. The World Boxing Organization's third-ranked cruiserweight behind the world champion Alexander Usyk and Noel Gebor, Kevin Lerena, will also be in action. He takes on Sergio Ramirez from Mexico.
Last-minute preparations ahead of Sunday's tournament. South African boxing legend Harold Volbrecht believes Thulani Mbenge will end Sean Nurse's reign as champion at Empress Palace this weekend. The Hammer, as Volbrecht is known in the boxing world, feels that Mbenge has everything it takes to win the fight.
I'm giving the edge to Mbenge because of his reach. He's got a nice reach with his long arms and that,
Mbenge has an unblemished record. The dreadlock boxer won every one of his 9 fights by knockout. Nurse, on the other hand, has been inactive for quite a while.
We know he's been inactive for a long time, since the last time he fought in November. So we know that, and it's going to be a big pressure. And we know he's been inactive, so it's going to be a positive thing for us.
In another fight, South African Kevin Lerena takes on Mexican Sergio Ramirez in an international cruiserweight bout. Lerena is highly rated by the World Boxing Organization, but Ramirez will present him with a different challenge.
I know he's a heavyweight coming down to the cruiserweight division, shorter than me, but stocky obviously. It's going to present a different challenge, but I'm up for the challenge and I'm looking forward to the fight.
The tournament at Empress Palace starts at 2 p.m. on Sunday. Bongane Morake, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now let's see if the sport of boxing is going to carry on with its rise back to where it belongs. The top seeds were tested on day 5 of the Monte Carlo Masters Tennis Tournament. However, all progressed to the third round relatively unscathed. Let's have a listen. World number 1 Andy Murray of Britain has recovered from an elbow injury and saw Gilles Muller of Luxembourg 7-5 and 7-5. Murray has got designs on making it to his first Monte Carlo final. Third seed Stanislav Wawrinka of Switzerland is also through to the third round, but he needed 3 sets against the Czech Republic's Yuri Vesely, winning 6-2, 4-6 and 6-2. Fifth seed Marin Cilic of Croatia was too strong for France's Jeremy Chardy, brushing aside the wild card 6-3 and 6-love to set up a meeting against Czech 9th seed Thomas Berdych. However, 9-time Monte Carlo champion Rafael Nadal of Spain was given an awful scare in his first clay court match of the season. The 4th seed needed 3 sets to beat Kyle Edmund of Great Britain 6-love, 5-7 and 6-3.
The 9-time champion here in Monte Carlo gets over the first hurdle in 2017.
And also yesterday, tennis superstar Serena Williams revealed to the world that she's pregnant and expecting to deliver her first baby this autumn. The confirmation by publicist Kelly Bush Novak came in a statement hours after the 35-year-old athlete had posted a photo of herself in a bathing suit on Snapchat with the caption, 20 weeks. Williams, who'll return to the number 1 ranking in the world next week, deleted the photo shortly after it appeared, and she waited more than 6 hours to make any public comment, stoking furious speculation about whether she was really expecting. The show for today. Thanks very much for having joined us. We'll be back tomorrow morning with the entire team. To the crew that put this together, as well as everybody that's been tweeting us this entire week, thanks very much. The entire team will be back 9 o'clock sharp until midday. Until then, listening soon.
Water-wise, water is an essential need. The scarcity of it could lead to loss of many lives, including livestock, plants, and much more. It requires us to use it sparingly and responsibly in times of need.